presentar. Es que mira, no sé si ellos también, pero la hicimos en Canva.
Sí,
y el apéndice en el
y ya tengo el TCG por encima y pues no.
Y directo en Canva le ponemos un problema
de que, o sea, la competencia no permite usted.
Lo tenemos en Canva.
Es que es un formato especial.
Ah, olvídalo. Si la bajamos sí se puede, ¿eh? Ah, no la bajamos y el apéndice se baja linkeado.
Entonces, podemos tener a Marco y todo el equipo de pero no se van a llevar. Ah, no, sí.
Yo sé, nada más quiero decir que en un par de minutos vamos a comenzar. Les quiero agradecer la presencia a todos y rapidísimo pasar lista que estén todos los equipos. Tec de Aguascalientes, bienvenidos.
Gracias.
Ibero, Anáhuac, la UP y UDEM. Perfecto, bueno, entonces los protagonistas ya están acá.
Muy buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos al Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Para mí es un gusto poder recibir en este magno evento que hace el CFA Society. Mi nombre es Gerardo Aparicio, yo soy el director de Cultura Financiera del Grupo Bolsa. Y sin duda, pues este evento lo he venido siguiendo desde muchos años antes, porque sí creo que es una semilla que germina, y aquí tenemos algunos mentores que provienen justamente de este propio certamen en años anteriores, y una vez que se siembra esa semilla de mostaza, esa espinita, pues provoca que cada uno de ellos empiece a profundizar un poco más en este tipo de temas complejos que tienen que ver con una finanza cuantitativa y sobre todo de cómo poder externar pues la situación de una empresa hacia el público en general, que es una labor sumamente relevante y donde pues el CFA desde hace muchos años, tanto en México como en el mundo, pues ha sido una institución de referencia muy importante en este sentido. Antes pues quisiera decirles algo que no va a suceder, pero que es importante que lo sepan. Si escucháramos alguna alarma de seguridad sísmica, tendríamos que seguir nuestras indicaciones de nuestro cuerpo de seguridad que nos llevarán a las puertas de emergencia y nos sacarán a Avenida Reforma. Solamente es mera recomendación. Ustedes están en una empresa de 129 años y un mes. Es una empresa centenaria en nuestro país. No lo digo a los jóvenes porque seguramente conocen muchísimo de esta empresa en estas semanas que se han metido profundamente, sino a los que los acompañan. Y obviamente pues siempre será un gusto tener a personas dentro del Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Pues esa es la bienvenida por parte de nosotros y doy paso a Héctor Reséndiz para que nos diga un poco cómo va a ser todo este proceso que llevaremos el día de hoy. Mucho éxito a todos los alumnos que ya ganaron, sin duda, y donde aquí tenemos pues claramente los futuros directivos y los futuros empresarios que dejarán en nuestro país en una posición muy positiva el día de mañana. Felicidades a todos, a sus mentores, a las instituciones educativas y pues siéntanse en casa. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Gerardo, por tus palabras. Y bueno, pues comenzamos. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Me da mucho gusto recibirlos el día de hoy en este foro y en esta empresa que nos ha apoyado ya por muchos años en la realización de este evento. Es la 15ª ocasión en la que el CFA Institute Research Challenge se lleva a cabo en nuestro país. Es una cifra que suena interesante. Los que hemos estado aquí ya varios años sabemos que ha sido todo un reto. Y bueno, nos sentimos honrados de que el día de hoy contemos con muchos de ustedes en este foro. El CFA Institute Research Challenge es organizado por el CFA Institute, es una competencia de análisis bursátil a nivel global Participan más de 150 países en esta competencia y esta es administrada a nivel de sociedades que pueden corresponder a territorios o países. En nuestro país, la etapa local es administrada por la CFA Society de México, una organización que tiene más de 400 miembros y pues que hemos venido organizando esta competencia con el apoyo de muchísimas empresas y de muchísimas escuelas. En los siguientes minutos les quiero agradecer a distintas personas y organizaciones que nos han apoyado en la realización de este evento para posteriormente describirles la dinámica y platicarles la orden del día. Los agradecimientos son extensos, son muchos y la verdad es que todos los que están aquí de algún modo merecen ese agradecimiento o ese reconocimiento. Comienzo con el Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores que en 2 vías nos ha apoyado para esta competencia. En primer lugar, nos ha facilitado sus instalaciones para poder recibirnos el día de hoy, cosa que agradecemos mucho. Y adicionalmente, a raíz de una plática que tuvimos con el director general de la empresa, con Oriol, al que tenemos el gusto de tener el día de hoy aquí, nos dijo que pensáramos si en algún momento nos convendría analizar a Bolsa Mexicana de Valores como empresa sujeta a análisis. La verdad es que cuando tuvimos esta conversación me pareció una maravillosa idea y dijimos, pues vamos para adelante. Y de ahí surgió que hayamos elegido a esta empresa el día de hoy. En ese sentido, muchas gracias a Oriol, a Gerardo Aparicio, que también nos apoyó con las palabras iniciales. Extiéndale por favor mi agradecimiento también a Luis René Ramón y a Nayeli Barajas. Son las personas que realizaron la presentación corporativa para los participantes y que les dieron mucha luz sobre cómo funciona esta empresa. En segundo lugar, también quiero extender un agradecimiento muy fuerte al equipo de Standard & Poor's Global Market Intelligence. Son nuestro patrocinador oficial que también nos ha acompañado por muchos años en esta competencia. Ellos nos apoyan de distintas maneras, nos apoyan con prestarnos su capital tecnológico, le abrieron su fuente de información a todos los participantes, además de darles entrenamiento. Es una plataforma que posiblemente y probablemente van a estar utilizando en sus carreras futuras. Entonces, que hayan tenido acercamiento a esta herramienta es algo muy bueno para ustedes. Adicionalmente nos apoyan de muchas maneras para poder realizar la competencia el día de hoy y en unos momentos también les van a dar unas palabras de aliento. En ese sentido, Alonso, Carla, Alondra, Manuel, muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. En siguiente lugar, no me dejarán mentir todos los equipos participantes. Creo que es súper importante agradecer a todos los mentores, a los graders que calificaron sus trabajos. Para los que no están tan familiarizados con la competencia, los equipos participantes recibieron el apoyo de algunos voluntarios de la CFA Society México, que nombramos asesores de la industria o mentores. La labor de estas personas es guiar y dar retroalimentación a los trabajos que los equipos realizaron. Posteriormente, a los equipos finalistas, que son los que nos acompañan el día de hoy aquí, también les dedicaron algunos minutos extras u horas extras para poderles darles retroalimentación de sus presentaciones. En ese sentido, también muchas gracias a todos los miembros voluntarios. Dentro del grupo de voluntarios no puedo dejar de mencionar, y su labor es importante, solo que el día de hoy es cuando van a brillar, a nuestro grupo de jueces. Nuestro grupo de jueces que muy amablemente dedican parte de su tiempo para escuchar las presentaciones, calificarlas y darles algo de retroalimentación. Marisa, Raúl, Vanessa, bienvenidos. En un momento más los presento a detalle. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Al resto de invitados, que en realidad son invitados muy especiales para nosotros, académicos, docentes, miembros de la industria, miembros de los medios de comunicación, gracias por venir a la competencia y ayudarnos a promover la importancia de la educación financiera en nuestro país. Gracias al equipo de Forbes, CEO, Funds Society, Rankia, Grupo ASIR, que nos acompaña el día de hoy. Y otro grupo de invitados muy especiales son el equipo representativo del ITAM, ganador de esta competencia hace un año, y quienes en unos momentos les van a dedicar unas palabras. Ricardo, Lorena, bienvenidos y extiéndanle nuestros saludos a Karef y a Diego, por favor. Por último, y probablemente de los eslabones más importantes para realizar esta competencia, un agradecimiento y reconocimiento a todas las familias de los participantes. Sin su apoyo, probablemente ninguno de los participantes el día de hoy estaría aquí. En ese sentido, muchas gracias a todos. Y bueno, los protagonistas. Mi más sentido reconocimiento a todos los equipos participantes y a sus miembros por estar el día de hoy aquí. Llegar a esta fase final es el reflejo de un trabajo arduo de muchos meses. Desde querer participar hasta lograr armar un equipo, organizarse, conocer a la empresa, analizarla, presentar su trabajo y pues afortunadamente llegar aquí a la final. Mi más sentido reconocimiento y felicidades. En ese sentido los menciono y pues, cuando termine por favor extendémosles un aplauso. Tec de Monterrey, Campus Aguascalientes, Universidad Universidad Anáhuac, Campus Sur, Universidad Iberoamericana, Universidad de Monterrey, y Universidad Panamericana, Campus UP. Estos son los 5 equipos finalistas de un grupo de más de 20 escuelas participantes que representaron a más de 9 estados de la República. En total fueron más de 100 estudiantes los que se inscribieron a la competencia. Aprovecho para mencionar que además de la representatividad que tuvimos de estados, tuvimos una participación de 35% mujeres y 65% hombres. Este es un número que puede parecer que no es parejo y claramente no lo es. 50% es una cifra que no hemos alcanzado, pero es una cifra a la que aspiramos llegar en algún momento. El tema de equidad de género es algo que nos estamos tomando muy serio en la sociedad, en la CFA Institute de México, y en ese sentido me da mucho orgullo ver a muchas mujeres el día de hoy y pues son mayoría en nuestro panel de jueces, entonces enhorabuena. Bueno, habiendo dado la bienvenida, quiero platicarles cuál va a ser la orden del día. Enseguida el equipo ganador del año pasado, el ITAM, nos va a dedicar unas palabras de aliento, después también palabras de Standard & Poor's Global Market Intelligence y de Oriol Bosch, director general del Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Posteriormente regresaré yo al micrófono para explicar un poquito más de la competencia y las reglas de la final, y a partir de ahí comenzaremos con las presentaciones y después pues ya los ganadores. ¿Les parece? Nuevamente bienvenidos, y sin más ni más invito al equipo representativo del ITAM 2022, ganadores del CFA Research Challenge del año pasado, a regalarnos unas palabras.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y sean muy bienvenidos a la final local del CFA Research Challenge México 2023-2024. Antes que nada me presento, yo soy Ricardo Guerrero, estudiante de Dirección Financiera en el ITAM, y yo fui parte del equipo que ganó aquí en la edición del año pasado. Hoy mis compañeros no pudieron acompañarnos lamentablemente debido a que se nos empalmó con algunos exámenes, pues de temporadas finales, pero hoy también los represento a todos ellos. Antes que nada quiero agradecer a Guillermina, a Héctor y a CFA Society México por invitarnos el día de hoy a darles unas palabras antes de empezar el concurso. Parece que fue ayer cuando hace un año estuvimos aquí con nuestros amigos y familiares en este gran evento. Hace un año, al igual que ustedes, estaba ahí sentado muerto de miedo, pero entusiasmado por presentar mi trabajo en la Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Puedo decirles que ese día ha sido uno de los más memorables, si no es que el más memorable de lo que he tenido en mi carrera. Posteriormente al evento también pudimos representar a México en las competencias subregionales, en las cuales también salimos ganadores, y luego fuimos finalistas en la competencia semiregional, en la cual acabamos con una gran actuación por parte de todo el equipo. El concurso es una experiencia que todos los integrantes del equipo consideramos realmente inigualable. Además de poder colaborar con personas que no conocíamos, pudimos hacer un gran análisis en el que dejamos todo en la cancha y pudimos ver hasta dónde éramos capaces de llegar. Ninguno de nosotros jamás se había enfrentado a algo similar y fue una gran experiencia. Puedo hablar por mí y por los demás de mi equipo cuando consideramos que el concurso fue un paso muy importante en nuestras carreras. A mí en lo personal me inspiró a inscribirme en el programa CFA y actualmente me estoy preparando para el nivel 1. Creo que el CFA Research Challenge es una experiencia única para los estudiantes que puedan participar en él. Es la oportunidad de aplicar todo lo aprendido en un caso práctico, un análisis más cercano a lo que ya se maneja en industria profesionalmente. Estoy seguro que, al igual que yo, pasaron muchísimas horas rompiéndose la cabeza con la evaluación y determinando la tesis de diversión. Créanme que independientemente del resultado de hoy, el esfuerzo que hicieron representa algo titánico. Se darán cuenta después del concurso de mucho que han aprendido. El que estén hoy aquí para presentar su trabajo habla mucho de ustedes como equipo y del esfuerzo que han hecho. Créanme que no es nada fácil llegar a la final y pararse aquí a presentar un trabajo de este tipo es muy difícil. Pase lo que pase, el estar aquí ya es un paso muy importante en sus carreras profesionales. Y el representar a las universidades en un concurso de esta dificultad también habla mucho de ustedes como estudiantes. Sé que seguramente están muy nerviosos y pues yo sí les puedo dar un solo consejo antes de empezar, es que presenten con entusiasmo, con ganas y céntrense en manejar el discurso para ilustrar muy bien sus puntos. Recuerden que al final del día ustedes son los que mejor conocen su trabajo. Ya solo queda que ilustren su tesis de inversión y convenzcan a los jueces. De parte del equipo ITAM 2022, queremos desearle mucha suerte a todos esta tarde. Sabemos que harán una gran actuación y queremos que sepan que estamos con la disposición de apoyar al equipo que representa a México en las rondas internacionales. Creo que el que hayan participado en este concurso fue una excelente decisión y créanme que habrán aprendido mucho a lo largo de todo el proceso. Y pues sin nada más que agregar, como bien decía Charlie Munger, aquellos que sigan aprendiendo seguirán creciendo en la vida. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Manuel, nos acompañas, ¿verdad?
Pues bueno, a mí me gustaría ser breve. Antes que nada, pues quiero ofrecer un gran agradecimiento a todos los participantes porque lo que involucra estar aquí, ¿no? De alguna otra manera, sí es acercarlos a la vida profesional, sí es de alguna otra manera manejar las herramientas que se van a utilizar en la vida profesional. Pero ¿qué es lo que pasa? Todo el esfuerzo que hay detrás, todo el esfuerzo de las familias, todo el esfuerzo de los docentes, todo eso se materializa y se cristaliza en unas cuantas líneas, ¿no? Yo lo que les quisiera decir es alentarlos a que se diviertan, alentarlos a que disfruten este último paso, porque ya lo lograron, ya lo presentaron, ya están aquí, y lo más importante de todo esto es, ya hicieron el trabajo, simplemente es platíquenlo, cuéntenlo, den una historia. Ustedes conocen los datos, ustedes conocen la evaluación, ustedes conocen sus modelos, y mucho de lo que se van a enfrentar allá afuera es cómo lo cuentan, cómo lo presentan, ¿okay? Entonces, antes que nada, muchas gracias a todos y muchas gracias también a Guille, a Héctor, que siempre nos abren la puerta para este certamen. Para nosotros es muy importante y nos encanta de verdad acompañarlos en este proceso. Ver todo lo que ustedes presentan son trabajos sumamente profesionales que, créanmelo, en la vida profesional va a ser muy parecido y les va a agradar más. Pues bueno, no me queda más decirles, disfruten, muchas gracias y pues bueno, Héctor, muchísimas gracias por el poder.
Y bueno, también invitado, testigo de honor, anfitrión, todo, mi estimado José Oriol Bosch Par, director general del Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Si nos ayudas con unas palabras, te lo voy a agradecer mucho.
Pues gracias y muy brevemente darles la bienvenida a la Bolsa Mexicana de Valores a todo. Nos da mucho gusto que se vuelva a llevar a cabo el CFA Research aquí en nuestras instalaciones en esta 15ª edición que ya la habíamos llevado en otras ocasiones a cabo aquí en nuestras instalaciones, en este auditorio, pero ahora, y quiero agradecer al CFA Institute y en particular al CFA Society, Héctor Villarmina, muchísimas gracias por escucharnos en un comentario que hicimos, porque en otras ocasiones se evaluaban algunas emisoras y pues decíamos, oye, pero la bolsa es una institución y una emisora y una empresa que en realidad es súper interesante. Ahí tengo conflicto, pero créanme que sí lo es, y lo verán ahora. Es interesantísima porque representa, tiene integradas de alguna forma a muchas de las empresas del país, es un generador de empleo, de desarrollo económico, apoyamos financiando todo y además somos una emisora y además también tenemos accionistas y además tenemos que reportar resultados. Entonces, nosotros también estamos muy contentos, muy emocionados, igual que todos ustedes. Por aquí está Nayeli, Luis René, Ramón, Rosa, Gerardo, varios integrantes aquí de la bolsa, que queremos pues escucharlos y encantados de aprender de ustedes. Y yo creo que la parte de research es bien importante. Todas las personas desde que reciben el primer domingo de alguna forma somos ahorradores, inversionistas, pero no todos les interesa o no todos tienen la capacidad, la preparación, han tenido acceso a la capacitación a las universidades, al CFA. Entonces, ahí la actividad de análisis, de research, es muy importante para que cualquier persona, cualquier inversionista pueda leer las recomendaciones, pueda leer el análisis, y alguien que conoce, que le ha dedicado más tiempo, le pueda decir, pues yo creo que es una buena inversión o creo que hay otras mejores. Entonces, creo que los trabajos fueron excelentes, los 21 trabajos, y ahí quiero felicitar a todos los 21 finalistas, 21 participantes, a los 5 finalistas que están llegando hoy. Y como veíamos en los dos comentarios anteriores, coincido, creo que ya ganaron, ya aprendieron todos. Suena fácil decirlo, pues sí, me imagino estarán nerviosos, pero disfrútenlo lo más que puedan. Y pues nuevamente dar la bienvenida a los finalistas, a todos los familiares, tutores, amigos, porras, todos los que los acompañan. Muchísimas gracias también por venir, y obviamente al jurado, muchísimas gracias. Me había tocado en otros años estar sentado ahí como jurado, obviamente siendo ahora la empresa que se analiza por primera vez en la bolsa, pues obviamente no podemos estar ahí, pero bueno, estaré atrás y calladito y sin decir nada. Y pues mucho éxito y muchísimas felicidades a todos, y muchísimas gracias al CFA, y sobre todo el reconocimiento que tiene la certificación del CFA a nivel global. Me ha tocado verlo, me ha tocado vivirlo, y la verdad creo que hacen un excelente trabajo, han mantenido desde que iniciaron una gran calidad y es ampliamente reconocido local y globalmente. Muchísimas gracias y bienvenidos, y mucho éxito, y disfruten. Gracias.
Pues qué emoción estar ganando rey nuestro. Pues vámonos con un poquito platicar sobre el evento. El evento en el que nos encontramos hoy es la final local organizada por CFA Society México. Se atravesó la etapa de realizar un reporte escrito, fue evaluado y ahora estamos en la final local. El ganador del día de hoy nos va a representar en la etapa subregional contra otros países de Latinoamérica. De ahí pasarán confío que van a pasar a las etapas regionales, semifinal y final regional, y confío también que puedan llegar hasta la final global. La verdad es que ya hemos tenido un equipo finalista a nivel global, representante de México, vamos por el segundo. Ya mencioné, 21 equipos participantes, más de 100 estudiantes, representación 35 mujeres, 35 hombres. En verdad que esto todavía lo vamos a seguir mejorando, y también las cifras de advisors y de mentors. Paso ahora a presentar a nuestro panel de honor. La verdad tenemos a tres personas destacadísimas del sector de la industria financiera en México. Conocen de análisis bursátil, de portafolio management. La verdad, honradísimos de tenerlos el día de hoy y agradeciéndoles muchísimo su participación. Comienzo presentando a Marisa. Marisa Garza es directora de análisis bursátil en Grupo Financiero Banorte. Cuenta con más de 20 años de experiencia en el sector financiero, a lo largo de los cuales se ha desarrollado como analista fundamental, con amplio reconocimiento en el medio y profundo conocimiento de todas las industrias. Marisa, muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Raúl Morales, bienvenido. Raúl Morales cuenta con más de 22 años de experiencia en el sector financiero en la Ciudad de México y en Nueva York, en distintas áreas como ventas institucionales, análisis, banca corporativa y trading. Actualmente es asesor en inversiones en NSA Asesores, el grupo asesor independiente en inversiones más grande y antiguo de nuestro país. Previamente fue director de mandatos discrecionales en la banca privada de Credit Suisse y ha colaborado en otras instituciones como Merrill Lynch, Barclays y Santander. Raúl, una vez más nos acompañas, te agradezco muchísimo. Y Vanessa Quiroga, muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Van es una reconocida líder de la industria financiera con amplia experiencia en el análisis macroeconómico y de los mercados financieros globales, así como en tendencias ASG. En su rol en Credit Suisse ha liderado la cobertura de los sectores de metales y minería, cemento y construcción y bienes raíces en los principales países de la región latinoamericana. Además, no lo hice aquí, pero yo sé que Van es una ferviente impulsora de los temas de equidad de género y la promotora de que haya más mujeres en puestos directivos en la industria financiera en nuestro país. Bueno, los 3 jueces que se suman a esa causa. Vane, bienvenida y muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Pues yo introduje a los equipos finalistas, nuevamente les damos la bienvenida y pues en un par de horas vamos a conocer al ganador de la competencia del día de hoy. Vámonos con las reglas, esto es súper importante que lo escuchen, que lo entiendan, probablemente ya lo saben, pero más vale repetirlo. Los equipos participantes pasarán a escoger, es una carta con el orden en el que se irán presentando. Cada equipo tendrá una presentación de 10 minutos, yo les avisaré cuando les reste 1 minuto y al terminar los 10 minutos en punto los tenemos que parar. Esto pues para que sea equitativo para todos. Acabando el tiempo de presentación, los jueces harán preguntas también en una ventana máxima de 10 minutos y bueno, sugerimos que todos los miembros, y esto ya lo saben los equipos participantes, que todos los miembros traten de participar. Así será para todos los jueces, para todos los equipos, perdón, y posteriormente los jueces estarán llenando el formato de evaluación de las presentaciones, que incluye los elementos que venían en las reglas oficiales y que ustedes ya conocen, y para beneficio de todos los menciono rápidamente: análisis financiero, evaluación, criterios de sostenibilidad, la presentación, las preguntas y respuestas, el involucramiento del equipo y la calidad del material de las presentaciones. Conforme vayan terminando de presentar, los equipos pasarán, Gerardo nos va a apoyar, a darles un pequeño tour por el Museo de Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Como escuchaba yo en un evento hace poco en el MIDE, uno de los 3 museos más importantes en temas financieros dentro de nuestro país, junto con el MIDE, en el cual fui becario, junto con el Museo de Banco de México, que recomiendo ampliamente por otras razones, y junto con este museo. La verdad, creo que es una visita muy buena y para desestresarlos un poquito después de la presentación. Con los puntajes de todos los equipos, más bien de todos para cada equipo se va a promediar el puntaje de los 3 jueces y con eso obtenemos la calificación de la presentación. Posteriormente vamos a promediar la calificación de la presentación con la calificación de los reportes escritos que ustedes ya entregaron, que ya fueron evaluados, y ahora sí que el puntaje más alto es el ganador. ¿Ya claro? Terminando de hacer las deliberaciones, hacemos la entrega de diplomas y premios y pues pasamos a un brindis, si les parece. En ese sentido, pues creo que esto es todo lo que tenemos de reglas. Pues también una frasecita ahí que creo que les queda excelente: the harder your work, the luckier you get. En ese sentido, muchísimo éxito, muchísima suerte a todos y pues vámonos con el sorteo. Les voy a pedir un representante por escuela aquí al frente. 3. Anáhuac va en tercer lugar. UDEM, segundo lugar. La UP presenta en cuarto lugar. La Ibero va en quinto lugar. Tec de Monterrey, Campus Aguascalientes son los que arrancan la competencia. Un sitio que entre muchas otras cosas es reconocido por su calidad ética. En ese sentido, mensaje para participantes: no pueden salir dispositivos electrónicos de esta sala. Se va a considerar una violación grave si detectamos un dispositivo electrónico. Y en ese mismo sentido, pues familiares, amigos, pues prohibidísimo cualquier tipo de interacción con los participantes mientras vayan presentando. Bueno, vámonos entonces, arrancamos con TEC Aguascalientes, por favor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's begin with our coverage of Bolsa Mexicana de Valores, ticker Bolsa, with a strong buy recommendation, setting a target price of 42.39 Mexican pesos per share, representing an upside potential of 29.38% from its previous closing price.
Bolsa has 129 years of history. It is the second largest stock exchange in Latin America. What put Bolsa aside is their competitive advantages, fortified by two of their main concessions. The first one I want to talk about is the Central Security Depository. It is the one in charge of clearing, securing, and settling most of the assets and transactions in the Mexican financial system. The second one is the market concession, in which Bolsa shares market with Viva. But as you can see on the graph, they absolutely dominate this market.
As you can analyze in the graph, there's a pronounced divergence between Bolsa and the Mexican Financial Index throughout this year. This mainly because of the uncertainty in the markets due to macroeconomic factors such as a strong peso. But things for Bolsa and Mexico are looking promising. After 19 years, Mexico recovered the lead in U.S. importations from China. All this thanks to the nearshoring. According to the Secretary of Finance, Mexico is set to receive around $68 billion in foreign investments throughout the next year. A clear indicator of this happening is occurring inside Bolsa, which is close to a record in long-term debt issue.
Regulations for Bolsa looks great. We are seeing two new regulations for the next years. The first one is a regulation for the new IPOs. This will make small and medium caps get easier on Bolsa with a cheaper and an easier terminal. The next one I want to talk about is a reform on the retirement law. This one will make employers' contribution be more for the retirement account of their employees, having an exponential growth in the Afores for the next years. Right now, those Afores represent 25% of Indeval's holdings. It is expected that the CAGR will be of 11.5% in the next years. According to the Secretary of Finance in Mexico, these assets will represent 53.6% of the total Mexico GDP for the 2050. When we talk about Bolsa, we gotta talk about diversification. In our first slide, you may think that all of their income came from the market operation, but actually, it is pretty well diversified. They have 6 different business models. The one leading, Indeval, with almost at 30% of the total income. Next, it comes the information services, the OTC operation, which operates in Chile and in Mexico, the capital issues, the market capital, and the derivative markets. Something amazing about Bolsa, again, is their efficiency. They are able to give us a 61% of EBT, a 55% on operating margins, 45% on net revenue, and a ROIC of 36%. In the past, we have seen a big correlation between the Mexican inflation and the Bolsa's revenue, giving us a 0.95 correlation coefficient. This number was pretty useful for our forecast revenue. Something amazing about Bolsa, again, is their dividend. They have had a 7.67% of CAGR and a 6.7% of dividend yield just last year. This is due to an internal policy that gives 75% of the payout ratio.
Bolsa is a cash machine. We can see this in the return on equity and in its free cash flow, surpassing those of its peers. Bolsa also has a leverage thanks to its capital structure. It has 99% in debt and less than 1% in liabilities. But let's talk about Bolsa's future. There's an expected growth of 11.56% in Indeval's revenue. All this thanks to the rise in the forest and the weakening of the peso. And talking about capital issues, we expect a recovery growth of 3%. And all this optimism is fueled thanks to the new IPO regulations and the nearshoring trends. Talking about Bolsa is talking about efficiency. Bolsa has a clear operational leverage. And combining this fact with our revenue estimates, Bolsa will absolutely skyrocket their numbers, making their EBITDA grow almost three times bigger, and absolutely destroying their peers in the ROE projected. Bolsa directly benefits from the growth in the monetary base. As a result, during the current cycle, it has shown a slowdown, but this is entirely temporary. An upturn is expected in 2024 due to more relaxed monetary policies in the Mexican government and the fiscal deficit in the upcoming year, causing Bolsa's revenues to rebound. Additionally, as we said earlier, Bolsa is a solid cash flow generator. This team firmly believes that the company will continue to increase its dividend as it has done year over year following its 75% payout guideline. Additionally, we also believe that the company will continue and increase its share buyback program as it has done year over year, creating a virtuous cycle for shareholders.
In the GSE area, it was found that Bolsa recognizes the future is sustainable and that they are a fundamental piece for the Mexican and Latin American GSE market. This allows for the valuation to reflect long-term financial sustainability. For Bolsa, the most important pillar is the governance one, strongly due to the nature of the industry which they are involved. That's why they pay attention to every single detail related to it. A proof of it is their independent board members' proportion and their gender diversity of the board. Bolsa recognizes the huge growth potential of the Mexican retail accounts and the impact of it to the valuation. Bolsa also knows the importance to invest in ESG activities. That's why they invested 20 million pesos seeking for an improvement in their rating. One of their strongest steps is the CO2 emission reduction, which has been reinforced for the past years. Bolsa also reached a 17% growth in the long-term ESG issued debt for the past year. Finally, it has to be said that Bolsa is part of the Sustainability Yearbook, which only allows the top 15% of the global industry.
Continuing with the evaluation, we have employed 4 methods, preferably discount based on their relevance. We assign a 55% for the discounted cash flow method, as part of valuing the cash generating machine that is Bolsa. For the discount rate, we use 2 rates, one for 5-year forecast period and another one for the terminal value. For the discount rate, we made adjustments to properly discount the capital, including risk and future macroeconomic environments, such as decreases in interest rates, historic and peers beta, country risk premium, cost of equity of CAPM and DN discount model, mean regression, specific risk premium, and size premium. As you can see in the graph, Bolsa has a higher ROI compared to the industry and its peers. But this is solely due to its leveraged capital structure and the country risk premium. To determine a growth rate, we use most relevant factors to Bolsa revenue, such as GDP and inflation. The segments that most contributed to enterprise value for Bolsa were Indeval, OTC, and information services. As a result of our DCF analysis, we obtained a target price of 43.78 Mexican pesos with upside potential of 29%. To reinforce our DCF analysis, we made scenarios, and in the beer scenario, the target price is still 8% above the current price.
As a complement to the DCF, we coded a Monte Carlo simulation in which we performed 1 million trials on the standard deviation, growth, terminal growth, and WACC rates of the free cash flow. The result is a price per share of 41.46 Mexican pesos. Next, the relative valuation was performed with 10 peers and their unique businesses. That's why we used a weight coefficient to rate every single peer by their coincidence to Bolsa's business model. In addition, we used a discount rate to get a fairer valuation. The chosen ratios were enterprise value to operating cash flow, EBITDA, revenue, and net income, and the result is a relative price per share of 38.53 Mexican pesos. Finally, the linear regression model works to get a linear relationship between the peers' chosen ratios, the trading days, and Bolsa's enterprise value and its price per share. The result is a price per share of 41.51 Mexican pesos.
As a result of our valuation, we obtained a target price of 42.39 Mexican pesos with upside potential of 25%, compared to a 4.2% to the S&P 500 according to the estimates.
With that said, we recognize 4 key downside risks to our strong buy recommendation. The first one, a downside of the market operations, unfavorable macroeconomic and domestic environment, new regulations or new concessions that affect Bolsa's businesses, and commission caps. With that said, we see a bright future macroeconomically and domestically. We see a board that is focused and aligned with their shareholders, and a solid and a diversified income statement. With that said, we put a target price of 42.39 pesos and reaffirm our strong buy recommendation with a 35.38 upside. This due to that the market is already realizing that the intrinsic value of the share is already distant from the market share. Thank you so much, and we're open to your questions.
Yes? Okay. First of all, congratulations on your presentation. It was very good, and I know all your work. I have a pair of questions. What do you consider, you were talking about that Bolsa deserves some revaluation. Did you calculate the target multiple with your target price. So what kind of revaluation you're talking about, and what does this going to be the catalyst that will show this spread to close?
We got we wanted to be at least with the peers. Right now we took as the main leader Brazil exchange, which was way above of the multiples that Bolsa has right now.
But you don't have. Didn't you calculate with your price target the target multiple, the number? Because we were talking about some revaluation, so you need to know trailing 12 or forward multiples how are, and what you're talking about, that kind of revaluation, because it's a fundamental part in your investment thesis.
Well, we calculated the pierces, and to get the fair evaluation, we took an average of those pierces,
Yes.
obviously taking into account the weight coefficient by their coincidence to Bolsa's business model. Obviously, the ratios calculated are over that, because those are the current ratios. The mean rounds 70, 11 approx, 16 and 10. That's an approximate. But yes, we did get a target ratio for every single ratio.
Okay, and what do you think are the main drivers that you can get to those target multiples?
Of course,
The main drivers.
Sure, the cash flow. We think that one of the strengths of Bolsa is the cash flow. That's why we chose those ratios.
Okay.
Yes, congratulations as well. Takes a lot of courage to be presenting like this. So one of the questions is about the risks. We don't know what could happen with monetary policy. Interest rates could take longer to go down. So how do you apply sensitivity analysis to not only on the valuation side, but on the revenue and your cash flow forecasts?
That was mainly due by the Monte Carlo. We did a bird scenario where we put these roads affected due to these macroeconomic events, and we got 36.81 pesos target price for that bird scenario with those unexpected policies or higher interest rates.
Great job, guys. Why do you think there's a strong relationship between inflation and the price of Bolsa?
Mainly because of their commission-based business models. A lot of transactions and a lot of the assets that Indebals mainly holds, or the transactions due to the market operations, are also really correlated with the Mexican inflation and the GDP of Mexico. So that's why there is this big correlation.
So that implies that last year, when we had inflation rates of very high single digits, that they raised prices accordingly. Is that correct?
There are also some regulations on their cap of their commissions, and additionally to that, there was also this strong peso thing that moves all of their valued assets, and they change from dollars to pesos, and when peso was way higher than the dollar, or at least at the tendency that do affect on the revenues that they just had.
Okay, thanks. And out of the four risks that you outlined, which is the one that you think is the most relevant?
Definitely the market operations one. That's why we put it on the top. And this is a problem that Bolsa has, and the listed capitals are way less than they should be and that we expect to be. A good thing about this is the new regulations for the IPOs, and we think that the market hasn't seen it correctly, and that these new IPOs will really reassign what we were expecting of Bolsa Mexicana de Valores, and that the market operations will be upper and upper, also with the addition of the hedge funds to the Mexican financial system as the law said it.
Okay. What do you think that the company has to focus on so that the market can recognize that there is a lot of value in the company?
They gotta focus a lot of on the free cash flow and the benefits of being part of the shareholders. It is a company that has a little bit, not so much volume on the Mexican system, and that is mainly because their shareholder structure is 50 institutional, 50 of the public in general. So there is a lot of need of them to really get to those last inversionists, like these new hedge funds, and get all that new money that will really put Bolsa's price on their real one, not on the one that they are right now.
Okay. In simple words, why do you think it's a strong buy, not a buy?
Mainly because the upside that we are projecting to our target price.
Only the upside on the target price?
And
none of the fundamentals?
Additionally to this, we have a catalyst, like the Afores and like the small and medium cap initial public offerings. That's the main catalyst to the strong board recommendation, to find the valuation, the 42.39 Mexican pesos in the next 12 months.
Mainly improving and implementing to the companies.
And across all the valuation methods that you used, with which did you feel more comfortable? Which do you think it really reflects what the market needs to price?
With the discounted cash flow method, because Bolsa is a strong cash generator. And it's difficult to find other peers exactly like Bolsa because it's a unique enterprise.
Okay. Do you think you need to go through all those different methods? Why don't you just use DCF?
Yes, we think that it is important to have more than one perspective to reaffirm what we thought, and also to have different perspectives, because each method have a specific perspective and they have some differences.
And how do you determine the weights among all the blended valuation? For example, I don't know, in the DCF, how much does it weigh in your valuation, and how did you decide that it must weigh that percentage?
Can you go to the... Well, mainly the discounted cash flows. Again, some of the good things about Bolsa was this part of how much money and cash they make year after year. The second one, the DCF Monte Carlo, which what we were talking about before, the upgrades and the downgrades that the market and absolutely the market could have in the next years, and we wanted to represent that to the Monte Carlo. The relative valuation is what we had in the past, and how the numbers project the revenue for those last one, just the same thing as the relative regression.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Globally, stock exchanges are facing a big challenge in attracting new listings and keeping current listings, since there is a clear trend in moving to private funds. The total listed companies in America's stock exchanges has decreased 3.7% from July 2022 to July 2023. Nevertheless, we believe BNB will increase its share price. We are proudly representing the Universidad de Monterrey, and today we're going to present our valuation for BNB Group. We believe BNB Group can achieve a 12-month target price of 40.17 Mexican pesos with an upside potential of 18%. Therefore, we issue a buy recommendation.
Our recommendation is based in 5 key drivers: diversified business lines, market position, capitalization, financials, and valuation.
Starting with diversified business lines. BNB Group offers services for the financial markets by 7 business lines with different customer bases, which have achieved a total of 4 million Mexican pesos in 2022 revenue. This is important for recommending a buy position because it helps to mitigate risk and also generates higher incomes in the future. Note the market position. The securities exchange market is extremely concentrated globally and in Mexico. Globally, the total market capitalization is $110 trillion, and it is expected to increase at an average rate of 4% according to DNB. Globally, 5 stock exchanges concentrate the 60% of the global market capitalization, and the BNB is the 25th largest in the world and the second one in Latin America. Inside the country, it is the leading stock exchange. We are considering other 4 stock exchanges as peers, which are NASDAQ and the stock exchanges of Brazil, Colombia, and Chile. We consider these peers based on the proximity, the market size, the business model, and the diversification.
Following with innovation, BNB Group aligns with global trends such as boosting investors' demands, listing popular products like ETF, and also taking advantage of globalization benefits. They are already helping Afores in being more active in the derivatives markets, as well as exploring innovations such as tokenization projects and live custody services for foreign institutions.
Let's move on to the ESG section. Investors' tendency to increase sustainability in their portfolio has dramatically increased. Therefore, it is crucial to evaluate ESG when evaluating Group BNB. Group BNB ESG performance falls behind the median of its peers. Nevertheless, they are already working and will keep improving their performance towards environment, social, and governance, pointing out that they are already performing in the social section. While Group BNB environmental performance falls behind the median of its peers, it is one of the changes aiming to have zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2015. Also demonstrating efficient energy use per sales, there is an opportunity for better waste management. Moreover, BNB has already initiated a waste reduction policy. Enhancing these efforts by adding an ESG listing requirement and a sustainable stock exchange membership will elevate their environmental impact. Moving on into the social section, they are already outperforming. They have a high percentage of women in leadership, community support, a strong health and safety policy, and a robust consumer data protection. To get even better, they could boost their investment in total hours spent by the firm in total employee training. Regarding governance, they have a strong female presence in board, a high meeting attendance, and a great number of independent directors. For instance, to improve these efforts, they can change their committee structure to put a sustainability committee. Also, they could have executive compensation linked to ESG goals. BNB overall performance, it's really seen through its active steps.
Next, we have the financials. Over the last 5 years, BNB Group has outperformed its peers in terms of profitability ratios, with its current ROA and ROA being 13 and 6 percentage points higher than the industry average, respectively. This is driven by an asset turnover of more than double than its peers and a higher net margin. BNB Group has channeled the majority of its cash flows into financing activities, especially the payment of dividends. Just in 2022, the dividend payout ratio was 80%, and in 2023, the dividend payment per share was 2.3 pesos. This will result in a current dividend yield for investors of 6.80%. Another action to enhance shareholders' values is the stock repurchase program. Up to date, BNB Group has bought over 14 million shares, and they still possesses an ample repurchase funds of 800 million pesos, which gives them the capacity to buy up to 23.7 million shares. BNB Group has a BBB credit rating by Fitch Ratings, which is one notch higher than Mexico's credit ratings. This is driven by 2 key factors. First of all, they have an impressive liquidity. With 4 billion in cash, they are more than able to pay all of its liabilities 4 times. The second reason is that they have a conservative capital structure with 90% equity and 10% debt, which significantly mitigates the risk of default of the company. For the valuation, we estimated a share price of 40.17 pesos using a blended methodology, including DCF method, present transactions, and trading multiples. We also included ESG factor as an additional increase of 1% in revenue, since we believe that BNB is already working and will keep improving to meet its ESG metrics, and this will improve their image and reputation, leading to an increase in the demand of their financial services. First, we have the trading multiples method. For this method, we use the market cap of the peers, and we computed the enterprise value as well as the enterprise value to revenue multiples. This resulted in an enterprise value of 20 million pesos and a share price of 35 pesos. The second method is precedent transactions. For this method, we search for the stock acquisition deals in the last years, and we use the enterprise value to revenue paid in these transactions. This resulted in an enterprise value of 24 billion pesos and a share price of 42 pesos. Finally, for the DCF methods, we computed a WACC of 12.22%, a cost of debt of 10.32%, and a cost of equity of 12.22%. We also used a terminal growth value of 3% as the expected GDP growth in Mexico. This resulted in an enterprise value of 24 billion pesos and a share price of 41.5 pesos.
Finally, the risk section. The principal market risks identified include the strong Mexican peso, the Mexico central bank rate, and the macroeconomic turbulence due to Mexico volatility. These risks are mitigated by the decreasing of the inflationary pressures, enhancing the relative attractiveness of trading, and also fostering the appreciation of the USD dollar's income. In addition, for the macroeconomic turbulence risk is also mitigated by the BNB 0.65 beta. These factors collectively contribute to a decrease from the target price of a minus 2.47%, a minus 0.92%, and a minus 1.91%, respectively. Then, the principal firm risk identified include the BNB lacks of liquidity, stemming from the minimal participation of the minority investors, resulting in a minus 1.01% from the target price. However, this risk is mitigated by the BNB future vision emphasizing the financial inclusion. The reputational risk faced by the BNB stems from the operational failures leading to temporary closures, resulting in a minus 1.64% from the target price. However, this risk is effectively mitigated by the robust internal control protocols implemented by the BNB. Considering the risk, the firm and the market risk, we calculate a various scenario of 38.25 Mexican pesos, which reinforce our board recommendation.
Based on the analyzed key drivers, the recommendation is clear. Buy. With a target price of 40.17, Group BNB has promising returns ahead.
Remember, invest smart, win big with BNB.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I will kick off with the first question. Congratulations for the presentation. The first one about the profitability of Bolsa compared to its peers that you used. How do you compare Bolsa in terms of margins and returns? Does it justify a premium in terms of multiples to peers?
Do you mean the profitability ratios?
Yes.
Okay.
Compared to peers.
Okay, we did a DuPont analysis comparing the peers, the 4 peers that we chose, and we did an average. You can see here that for the last 5 years, BNB has outperformed its peers for the ROA and for the ROE, and we also did a DuPont analysis for the year 2022. First, we have the net margin. And it doesn't appear here, but we also use the asset turnover to calculate the ROA. And then we use the leverage to calculate the ROA. And BNB consistently appears as superior compared to the peers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you go back to the enterprise value to revenues charts that you put out, please? And why did you decide to go that way instead of fees? Yes, that one, please.
Why did we decide to use enterprise value to revenue?
Versus P.
Okay. Well, there are other multiples like enterprise value to EBITDA, but we prefer to use enterprise value to revenue because we wanted to focus on the capacity to generate income of BNB compared to the peers.
But why not price to earnings?
Price to earnings. Because price to earnings doesn't consider the debt and the cash that the enterprise value does consider.
Okay. And why did you say that the dollar affects Bolsa as one of the main risks?
Yeah, because around 50% of the incomes of the BNB are in dollars. So we calculate that the impact if the dollar. Well, we have an appreciation expected for the next year, but in the last months, these expectations becomes more conservative because the inflationary pressures has been decreasing, but the central bank rate is still in 11.25%. So we consider as risk to maintain a conservative appreciation of the USD dollars incomes.
And what do you think about interest rates? Because you didn't elaborate much about it. How does it impact high interest rates and will become low next year? Okay.
Thank you for the question. The elevated rates will affect also the market in terms of the capital markets, in terms of the volume of incomes, and also we incorporate this risk into the evaluation by the WACC. Affecting the WACC.
Yes, actually, instead of using the current interest rates, we use an average of the TF for the last 5 years because we consider that the current interest rate is too high compared to other years. So that's why we wanted to remain consistent with what's going to be expected for the next years.
Okay, thank you. And on your evaluation, you had something about present transactions, but I was wondering that the present transactions, they meant a long time ago. So why did you consider those valuations maybe still fair nowadays? Because we were talking about 2013, for example, and in the Bovespa is 2010, and too many things have happened in between. You're talking about 13 years from one another, and certainly in time, valuations change. So why do you think this approach is correct?
Okay, well, there are not a lot of stock acquisitions transactions in the last years, and that's why I decided to use these ones. We also wanted to include this method in case BNB is interested in selling their participation to other company. So by looking at present transactions, they could have like a fair price to what they could evaluate their company.
And that's also the reason that we give only at 25% for this method, because we are conscious that these present transactions are like so many years ago. But the reason of that my partner says, and also that's the reason that we just assign at 25% for our valuation.
And last, what do you think about Bolsa? Is it maybe a cheap company, but so with kind of not so big revenue increases, or do you think it's a value company and that it's really with high value undervalued?
Well, the last years for the stock exchanges have been a complicated year, as you mentioned, for the revenues, but we also need to consider that the BNB have a diversified business lines that incorporate also the information that the custody service that are expected to increase at an average rate around 4%.
Okay, thank you.
Do you see Viva as a threat or just a minor distraction?
Just as a minor distraction. BNB is the main one in our country, so Viva is not even a public company, that's why it's not our peer.
Question about the risks assessment that you made. How did you calculate the impact on valuation? Can you explain how you reflected that on the different valuations?
Yeah, for example, for the market risk, the strong Mexican peso risk, we introduced to the valuation in the model by decreasing the revenues in USD dollars. The Mexico Central Bank rate, as I mentioned, we incorporated at the WACC. For the macroeconomic turbulence due to Mexico volatility, we did it in the beta. Can we pass to the next slide, please? And for example, for the FIM risk, the lack of liquidity, we affect the capital business model, the revenues for the next year, and the reputational risk was with technology expenses because we expect that if this risk is presented, they are going to need like more expenses for cybersecurity.
What do you think the stock price dropped 18% after the third quarter earnings and then rebounded all the way back to where it was before? That's very recent, but if you're not aware, that's fine. But it's very volatile. So after the third quarter earnings, shares dropped 18%, and now they're back to where they were trading before the report. Just wondering if you had any thoughts.
Well, also we need to consider that the market, the volatility of the market, and also that in the country and globally are happening like events that affect the financial markets, such as the wars as we are living, and also the political decisions.
Momentaneous downturns in the stock price doesn't really reflect the intrinsic value of the company, so we believe that it doesn't have a really significant impact in the long term.
Would you like to share with us about the bull and the bear cases, not only about the macro points, but also from Bolsa's point of view?
Yeah, we're going to present the bull and the bear scenario for the BNB that we calculate. Well, I can advance that explaining I already mentioned the ways that we incorporate each of the risks in our evaluation to estimate the bull and the bear scenario. And the bear scenario, as we already mentioned, is 38.25%. That is still giving around a 12 to 13% upside. So we're still recommending a buy. And for the bull case, we have a 45.85 Mexican pesos, so that's a strong buy. And as we mentioned, we calculate by TSL models and ARIMA models the ranges of the risk that could affect for the next year, and we evaluate for the bull scenario with the results.
Thank you. Thank you.
Months ago, when we realized we would have to value the stock exchange, we were just astonished, to be honest. To value a company responsible of upholding the financial system of a country, with over 100 years of operation, and last but not least, the very same company that today opens its gates to engage in dialogue with us. Not an easy task, isn't it? Dear members of the jury, ladies and gentlemen, that's Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores, and today, the team of Universidad Anáhuac Sur presents its light buy recommendation, consistent with a 12-month target price of 35.3 Mexican pesos, along with an implied upside before taxes of 24.17%. However, our stance goes beyond the numbers, as we know we're not dealing with a traditional company. Despite popular belief, Grupo BMB is a unique service provider that generates value through 9 distinctive business lines, synthesized for a broad analysis into 3 main segments: capital markets, derivatives and over-the-counter, and information services. Therefore, the team underpins its recommendation according to 3 key rationales. Firstly, an attractive dividend yield, as Bolsa guarantees a stable dividend and buyback policy that could be attractive to investors. Secondly, the team has assessed certain growth opportunities that could impact Bolsa's revenues in the form of the new sharing phenomenon and an upcoming reform to the pension system. Finally, Grupo BMB should be understood as an international player. Since its geographic reach through the global market SIC, it's truly global, therefore requiring analysts to comprehend the global landscape from recent years.
What is happening in the world? Global economies have been bombarded by black swan events. This has triggered inflation, resulting in sustained hawkish interest rates. Additionally, the recent geopolitical conflicts, the turbulence in American financial institutions, and the fear of a recession have elevated uncertainty and brought anxiety back to the market. This has led investors to seek refuge in safe havens like gold and fixed income assets. With this panorama in mind, who are the main players in the industry? Nationally, Grupo BMB holds a stable market share against its sole competitor Viva, as they only compete against the capital markets division. However, their real competition emerges from foreign markets, particularly the ones in robust economies. A clear example is the United States, that given its elevated valuations, as well as their great stock exchanges in it, they have presented a several competition to the Mexican market. On the other hand, we have the Brazilian market, that due to its favorable economic conditions, they have garnered international attention, especially from investors. Now, as a team, we have analyzed 2 main catalysts that could boost the Mexican economy. The first one being the nearshoring, that is going to increase the foreign direct investment, mainly captured by CKDs, bonds, and REITs. Secondly, we have the reform to the Mexican pension system. This one is going to increase the individual contributions, and that's going to reinforce the assets managed by Afores, which is going to give new investment opportunities in the Mexican market. Finally, let's take a look into what Grupo BMB has. We consider that due to the fact that they are the second best ranked player in the industry regarding ESG, they have really strong internal policies. However, due to their relevance and importance to the development and growth of the Mexican market, their external policies and practices could go even a little bit further.
An amazing grade goes in line with our recommendation. However, we believe there's still margin for improvement. Regarding the environment, Bolsa has tried, as they have implemented several proposals that go against Scope 3 even before considering them. But for them to remain an ESG player at the top of his game, they have to keep maintaining a steady pace. Now, regarding social, the reform to the LMB gives Bolsa Mexicana de Valores the opportunity to go through SMEs so that they can be perceived not anymore as an only large capitalization company. Finally, governance. The company excels whenever we're talking about gender, but a main role should not only go above average, so that they can foster the market and enhance them to make a change. Our recommendation is based on a misprice due to an unfair reaction to the third Q report. Plus, let's discuss revenues. The equity segment has been stable throughout the years. However, we believe that the pension fund system, as well as the settlement cycle reform, will boost revenues, but if catalysts such as the nearshoring materialize, such expected revenues may even triple. Now, let's go to derivatives, or better said, the OTC market in Chile. They have outperformed the market. They have been surprised thanks to a depreciated dollar and interest rates. While we have a negative trend in the future, we believe that this should be taken as an example of how ready Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores is to provide services and products to their clients. Information sales. The outperformer of Bolsa. Well, we want to look better at the currency in which revenues are perceived here. Why? Because it denotes the international presence and interest there is for products from Grupo Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Last but not least, the team conducted an analysis in which we concluded that revenues are not related with an increase in revenues is not related with expenses. Thus, one of the main barriers in profitability is just how revenues could go, but more on this later.
The evaluation was conducted in Mexican pesos. To obtain the target price, we weighted three methods: free cash flow to the equity with 60%, dividend discount model with 25%, and multiples with 15%, obtaining a target price of 35 pesos with 3 cents. We selected free cash flow to the equity due to the current low debt-to-equity ratio and the absence of significant plans to modify it, resulting in a target price of 35 pesos with 14 cents. Also, we made a two-stage DDM considering a 5-year net income projection and a 5% terminal growth rate, yielding a target price of 31 pesos with 75 cents. Also, a relative evaluation approach was employed, resulting in a target price of 40 pesos with 5 cents. We weighted 3 multiples: price to earnings with 15%, price to book value with 35%, and enterprise value to EBITDA with 50%. However, it is critical to note that the complexity on selecting comparable companies due to difference in accounting standards, geographic location, and other factors create a bias in the result. Therefore, we assign a lower weighting compared to the other two methods. Also, we made a tornado analysis to look at the variables that could affect the most our valuation. These were revenues, Mexican risk-free rate, and total current assets. And finally, we made a Monte Carlo simulation because we saw that the stock returns adhere to a normal distribution, obtaining an average price of 31 pesos with 67 cents. This gives a statistical support to our valuation.
All the prior information given, we identified 4 main risk categories, them being economic, financial, regulatory, and operational risk. As for operational risk, it is very important to mention that reputation, cybersecurity, and hacking, failure of technological systems, and human errors can affect all business lines, and for this reason, we should pay close attention to it. As for regulatory risk, it is very important to mention that this company in specific plays a crucial role for the development of the Mexican economy, and for this reason has to stick to Comisión Nacional Mexicana de Valores regulations and international standards to continue and participate in the global market. Of course, risks may hinder valuation. As for financial and regulatory risks, these risks include changes in fees and regulations that are extremely related to the changes in commissions on the market that can end up affecting the valuation. As for the impact operational and economic risks may have, these are really hard to measure and quantify. Lastly, given all our research and all opportunities, challenges, and overall results for the company, we strongly defend our light-buy recommendation for the group. We are Universidad Anáhuac Sur. Thank you all very much for your presence, and we are now open for your questions.
Thank you. I have a question on your recommendation. Why is it a light buy and not a buy? I think that when you go with some investors, it's sometimes say, is it a buy or I don't buy? it makes some real confusion because you say it has a lot of fundamentals, but it seems that you're not convinced on the recommendation. What do you can tell me, please?
Well, we issued a light by recommendation because we consider that several catalysts are going to materialize, and these are enough to generate a good profit to our investor. However, investors should keep on looking these other catalysts that it's hard to say that they're going to perform in such way, but in case they do, they're going to give an even better return.
Well, no, like buy, it's not a common recommendation. However, one of the main reasons for our buy is the market mispricing caused by an overreaction in the last quarterly report. However, a lot of the segments that we have analyzed could indicate more a hold position. That's why we only mention a like buy. Also considering as actuaries the different levels of risk at which different investors exercise their investment. So a like buy could be more for a risk lower type of investor.
But maybe the investor should tell you, so this is not the moment to buy the stock.
I think it's like, let's say from a chartist perspective, like you want to take up the rally, you know that the market's going to give you, but you are also like willing to go through a fundamental perspective.
And a fundamental perspective, you need to tell if it's a buy or not. So if it's a hold, but not a light buy. A light buy is misguiding. That's what I think. And sorry, you were talking about revenues.
Yes.
What do you think are the main catalysts on revenues? You said that it is more on revenues rather than on cost, but what are you trying to tell us?
Well, the catalyst detected mainly, well, there are several for each business lines, but we are going to focus on the ones like local. It's going to be, for example, Afores, the reform to the settlement cycle, nearshoring, but we are still a little bit skeptic about that one. Now, focusing on, let's say, other segment like information sales, we believe that there are like several like non-perceived, like, well, implied catalysts, such as a stronger demand of information to boost certain financial models that are now like having a bonanza period.
In the beginning, you said that the return potential was 25%, I think, pre-taxes. What are taxes in Mexico for capital gains? So, what are taxes? What if they're after taxes?
Well, if we consider the taxes that investment creates are 30% in ISR, so, well, we calculated the target price and the dividend, and regarding this, we made our recommendation.
Well, despite knowing that there's like around 10% of taxes on dividends and 30 or also 30% on equities, since there's also a tax that's around also 30% in debt, we didn't feel on the need of computing such price as the tax that you were gonna receive from the debt part. It was gonna be enough so that there's no reason for comparison.
That's fine. I mean, it's a tough question because we don't expect you to know that way, but just for you to know, it's 10% on capital gains in Mexico and 35% on income from fixed income securities, for instance, from the real rate on fixed income. So just for you to know, it doesn't matter for the presentation. But since you mentioned it in the beginning, I wanted to ask. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Regarding what you mentioned about Bolsa having an opportunity with small and mid enterprises, what initiatives does Bolsa have to tap better that market?
We know that with the emerging law and the reform to the small and medium cap companies, Bolsa has talked about including them in the market, and they have talked about some programs for them to know what the market is about, for them to know what's the best way to invest, what to invest and not, because it's going to take a risk. They have to take a risk if they want to enter the market. However, we still have to see which actions are actually accurate and which ones are going to take place, because this reform is still new.
So you guys did not incorporate any benefits from that part of the regulation on your forecasts?
No, we see it more like an ESG driver. It's gonna help them to have a better relationship with the whole market, as they're gonna be perceived as someone that, despite not being their main focus on the business, they're willing to do something for them to make them more inclusive in the market, to have a stronger participation. It is a little bit hard to say how are they going to do it, but we believe that should be the way in which they should go. Social is also not the best ESG grade yet.
It's tough to know at this stage, but do you have any sense of how AI can benefit or hurt Bolsa in the future?
As for ESG, we believe that talking about, for example, employees, it can affect more in that part of ESG, given that it can take up the jobs of some people working in Bolsa. However, we believe that the company should be prepared and should step up and train employees to continue and develop skills that are required to not be substituted by ESG.
Exactly, on an internal. Exactly, on an internal, from internal perspective, this may be a problem because you have people that's already doing some labor work, but as my partner said, at the end of the day, you're also creating some new jobs. Even the dynamics on the revenue from the expenses segment have a very interesting trend in which you are losing people from the personal expenses, but you're also incorporating new people from the technological expenses. That would be right now. Now regarding external and I believe the question was related to revenues, so sorry. But for example, there's a risk on blockchain, despite not being such a risk here in Mexico because it's more global, maybe Asian markets. We believe that, on a globalized trend, there's still a concern for having someone that's looking for the market. So maybe Bolsa could create a division related with these, because at the end of the day, they're also they're not the intermediaries directly. They're only providing that service. So they could create such scheme. They could also belong there. So we believe that's the risk, a migration risk, more or less, of the business segments.
Yeah, what do you think that Bolsa has to do to increase profitability? Because you have talked about different kind of expenses, but what do you think that the company has to focus on?
Do you mind if my partner answers?
Okay.
Well, we believe that Bolsa has to take these opportunities that has appeared, like the forest or the SMEs, the new lane. We believe that they have to take these opportunities and create several plans to take this and take profit from it.
Well, as you may know, the main source of income for Bolsa is definitely commissions, and that's not something that it would be easy to regulate, as it could mean if they lower it, they could increase their operations. However, they will be losing profitability. So therefore, we believe the main catalyst that, as a nearshoring phenomenon and a common reform operations, it's a huge opportunity for Bolsa to truly grasp such a unique moment in the history of our economy right now.
Yeah.
Financial resilience is built on the foundation of making tough decisions. Welcome, judges, members of the CFA Society of Mexico, and esteemed audience. We issued a recommendation on Bolsa Mexicana de Valores with a 12-month target price of 32.69 Mexican pesos with a limited upside of 8.6% from the closing price of the 7th of November of 2023, falling behind the investment opportunity of CETES. We identified three main pillars to build our investment thesis. First, Bolsa Mexicana de Valores is the leading stock exchange in Mexico, but they participate in an underdeveloped and shallow market. Second, the company's financial strategy falls behind its international peers. And third, value generation strategy of Bolsa Mexicana de Valores falls behind its international peers. We believe that the lack of a real growth plan from Bolsa Mexicana de Valores, derived of its economic activity, has led us to have a conservative valuation. We forecasted a limited growth on the 7 business lines and 7 revenue lines and 6 subsidiaries. Bolsa Mexicana de Valores offers a vertically integrated value chain by operating cash equities, derivatives over-the-counter markets, custody clearing houses, and settlement facilities, as well as information services. Now, my colleague Antonio will present the first pillar of our investment thesis.
Thank you, Manuel. Now, for the industry and the Mexican market. First, the competition is gaining market share. BMV operated without competition until Viva was founded in 2017. Currently, BMV still holds the upper hand in the market share with 88% compared to Viva's 12%. Viva's market share increased 7% year over year. For the foreseeable future, we can expect BMV to keep losing ground in the market share. When the law reform with the goal of leveling the playing field was implemented in November 2021, Viva only had 6% market share. After this, we can see an exponential growth from Viva. Second, the shallow market. The lack of incentives, few institutional investors, and the new funding sources available are the main factors causing a decrease in the number of listed companies in the Mexican market. In the last 5 years, BMV had 9 listings and 12 delistings. Globally, IPOs have decreased by 4.13% CAGR from 2019 to 2023. The lack of liquidity in the market is a negative factor for companies, as they are starting to see an absence of capitalization opportunity. Third, the new law reform will not impact. We do believe that the industry might have growth opportunities in 2025 with the implementation of the new securities law. We think that this new legislation will help optimize the listing time, but will not significantly impact the demand and the liquidity in the market. The due diligence costs will still be present, and if a company intends to be listed, the listing time will not be a factor in their decision. We expect low to medium growth in the company's revenue lines starting in 2025. Now my colleague Gisela will explain the financial strategy investment thesis driver.
Thank you, Antonio. On the surface, the company's financials may seem promising. However, taking a closer look, they are concerning to investors for the 3 following reasons. First, we expect the company's CAGR to decrease to negative 3.84% by the end of 2023. Even though we forecasted a stabilized compounded annual growth rate of 5.55% from 2024 going forward, we believe that this will not translate into significant growth in the company's intrinsic value. Comparing the company's CAGR with its peers, we can see that historically it has been below the industry average. Second, the company's mature income sources and stable cost structure have led to flattish top-line growth. The company faces some risks in terms of margin contraction due to their stable cost structure and lack of growth in their top line. We expect a downfall in revenues for 2023 compared to 2022, leading to a margin contraction for the following 2 years. Comparing the company's EBITDA, cost of goods sold, and SG&A margins to the industry median, we can see that the company falls behind in terms of cost structure. Third, both of these previous reasons are reflected on the return on equity. When comparing our leveraged equity from our 5-step DuPont analysis, we can see that the company falls behind its peers. This is also supported by our debt-to-equity ratio comparison. All of this indicates that BMV has not seized financing opportunities when it comes to generating real growth for investors and for the company. Next, Emilio will explain our third pillar.
Thank you, Gisela.
First of all, we have a historical buyback program. We believe that fundamentals rather than share buybacks are the main drivers of the stock's value. Therefore, we conclude that the stock's current price is inflated due to these artificial measures which are not sustainable in the long run. Earnings per share might be inflated by share buybacks because of the reduction in shares outstanding. While this may make financial metrics look more attractive, it does not necessarily reflect improved performance of the company. Also, we argue that focusing on earnings per share through share buybacks distract us from the company's underlying health and growth prospects for the future. Next, we have a historical high dividend payout. The company has had a high dividend payout program for almost 10 years. The payout ratio of 80% compared with its peers, Nasdaq, CME, and Hong Kong Exchange, of 34, 97, and 95% compared to 80% of BNB, reflect an increase in the stock's drivers, but does not reflect the true value within its price. Also, high dividend payouts might decrease the sustainable growth rate of the company. Finally, we believe that BNB has a poor strategy and a lack of ideas. The fact that the company destines its retained earnings in high dividend payouts and not on growth capex reflects the company's inability to evolve through new ideas that would reflect an impact and increase in top line that has not been seen. Finally, we believe that high dividend payouts and share buybacks, if not accompanied through organic growth, might be seen as a short-term financial strategy tactic. Next, my colleague Paula will explain ESG.
Thank you, Emilio. BNB is a leading company in ESG, and it ranks above its main competitors with a 65 out of 100 S&P Global ESG score. Now let's dive into the pillars of our analysis. First, environmental. BNB's business model does not allow for engaging in significant CO2 emissions, and they score 77 out of 100 in their climate strategy S&P Global ESG score. Second, social. BNB scores 50 out of 100 in their social S&P Global ESG score. Finally, governance. BNB's board of directors is composed by a gender-diverse group of experienced professionals. However, they score 72 out of 100 in their S&P Global ESG score. Some of the members are currently exceeding, or soon will be exceeding, BNB's recommended limit. Now, let's go forward to our valuation. With our DCF, we arrived at a 31.59 target price. We consider each revenue line separately to account for the responses to the different drivers. We use a 14.52% WACC, calculated by using the build-up method, and a 4.8% terminal growth. We also conducted bull, bear, and base case scenarios with a 250 basis points increase and decrease to the top line. We also did multiples valuations, and we arrived at 3 different prices: 36.42, 36.51, and 42.50. We gathered price earnings, enterprise value beta, and enterprise value sales multiples from Nasdaq, CME, Hong Kong Exchange, and Bovespa, and made an adjustment for country risk and market cap to account for liquidity differences. Now, Manuel will continue with valuation.
Thank you. Finally, we conducted a dividend discount valuation in which we reached a target price of 32.05 Mexican pesos, using a dividend of 1,502.8, a dividend growth rate of 7.28%, and a discount rate of 60%. To get to our target price, we made a weighted average of 70% DCF, 5% each of the multiples valuation, and 15% dividend discount, reaching a 12-month target price of 32.69 Mexican pesos with a limited upside of 8.6% from the closing price of the 7th of November 2023, which falls behind the investment opportunity of CETES, leading us to issue a sole recommendation on Bolsa Mexicana de Valores. Thank you.
Great job, guys. Let me start with one question that you addressed in the beginning. You compared it to CETES. Why did you do so?
We did this comparison based on a risk-free rate, so we could compare the upside of the stock of BNB to the risk-free rate of a popular instrument in Mexico.
Okay, that's fine, but remember that when a portfolio manager decides whether or not to buy one stock, normally he would say, he would make the decision within the context of equities only. You can do asset allocation, which is fine, but that may be the job of someone else, or a financial advisor in general. But I mean, that's fine. Sectors are very attractive right now, making many stocks relatively more expensive or less attractive. But most often a PM will say, I prefer Bolsa versus Banorte or versus Cemex, and do an allocation within equities, within sectors, and within regions. So I mean, that's fine that you included sectors, but I just wanted to see your thought process.
We made that recommendation since you can take a risk-free asset instead of a risky asset. So maybe for an investor, it will be more attractive, taking into account that there is only a 1.70% difference in the return of each one of the instruments. So that's why we are giving a recommendation of instead buying a risk-free asset and not a risky asset.
Right. Again, the asset allocation decision is a different one than the security selection, but that's fine. And one more. Congrats on putting a sale on the rating. It's not easy to do so, and it's not easy to justify it. I think you made very good points about what may be lacking in terms of the performance or the drivers of the stock. I mean, you can debate whether it's good or bad to put a sell or a buy rating, but congrats on being brave to put a sell and to try to justify it accordingly, because it's not easy. And one more thing from my side. The fact that you compare it to the peers abroad, and I think it was your second or the third point on the beginning of the presentation, that it was different and it was underperforming. Yes, but given that Mexico is a shallow market and underperforming or underdeveloped, I think you mentioned, that's where the opportunity is. And maybe it's not fair to compare it to NASDAQ or CME, etc. I know you made some adjustments, but then the upside could come as well. And also considering that the reforms in Mexico will benefit flows from Afores, etc., bringing more flows to the Bolsa eventually.
So we decided to compare BNB to other industry leaders in different areas. We specifically chose NASDAQ and CME because there are direct competitors in the sense that they're Mexico's neighbors. And we chose Hong Kong and Bovespa as they are emerging markets as us as well. We did these market cap and country risk adjustments to compare, and also for the evaluation, so that it would be a more just valuation of a company.
Yes.
We performed these adjustments because of what you were saying exactly, because of the shallow market that is currently existing in Mexico, and because of the differences in demand and supply, especially in each of the different countries that we are looking at.
Yes, also, I want to start also saying you congratulations, because you need to be very brave. And also because we are here in Bolsa, so I don't know what the real thing is about with the sell recommendation. But you have showed us why is it a sell from your point of view. But what does Bolsa needs to do in order to enhance growth? Because you said it doesn't grow. And I think it may be some points under discussion, no? But what do you think, from your perspective, that you think that Bolsa has to do to enhance growth?
For example, can you hear me? Yeah. For example, we previously said that CapEx, compared with its peers, has no growth CapEx to free cash flow. There's one graph that shows us how, even though the peers we compared with BNB, even though they have high dividend payouts, they're able to invest some of their retained earnings in CapEx growth. That, well, we can say it's an investment in expansion, right? And if Bolsa does not expand and only pays high dividend payouts and inflates the price through share buybacks, I don't think there's a true value creation in that strategy. So that's why we recommend them to be more innovative with their programs, and not only base their expected growth in the new securities reform.
We also see a big opportunity in the derivatives market. As we've seen before, we take SME as a peer to compare, and they have like a more sophisticated market in the United States. So we think in Mexico we have a big opportunity to promote the derivatives market and include more different type of instruments, so we can develop the derivatives market in Mexico.
Okay, and only something about the share buyback program. You say that it is artificially inflating the share price, but it is more like a dividend policy. I don't understand really why you say, of course, if you compare it when you have lower number of shares, maybe the EPS is reduced. But it is a dividend that the company is paying to you. It's not artificially elevating the price. So can you elaborate on this, please?
Yes, I just want to add that, first of all, we do not say the dividend is wrong. We just say that maybe some of it, or not entirely maybe, should be destined to other types of strategies or other expenses, or a different use of the cash flow that they currently have.
I will also like to add that imagine you're viewing several companies and you're basing your decision on the price to earnings valuation. And if you decide or you take into account this multiple, you surely know that share buybacks, they inflate the price of earnings per share due to the reduction of shares outstanding. So clearly the multiple does not reflect the company's true value. So these share buybacks may distort some of the metrics in which portfolio managers base their decisions to analyze the company and include the company in their portfolios.
Yes, just adding to the feedback combined with questions. What investors usually look for in a company in Mexico is high growth, right? Because we are an emerging market. And I think what you're trying to say is that the company should focus its cash flow on investing for growth instead of distributing it in cash or dividends or stock buyback. So I believe that you don't think the revenue growth strategy of Bolsa is credible. So can you elaborate? You mentioned derivatives. What else could be a credible revenue growth strategy that Bolsa could realistically apply? Are they missing obvious opportunities, or is it something structural of where we are located?
So there's a combination between everything, I think. For starters, we do believe that it is a shallow market. So in terms of the possible listings in the company, in BMB, which is what drives the revenues, we believe that there's not as much interest as we would like there to be, for there to be considerable growth. There's also other aspects as that where they can invest, and I'm thinking a little bit more internationally, as they did with CFA and as they tried to do in Miami with the information company that you tried to put there. I think that was a really good initiative, and I think it should be directed more in that sense.
Also, as you may know, well, the equities market is not as attractive because of market liquidity. So, you know, companies.
Hola, hola.
Good afternoon, everyone. We come in representation of Universidad Iberoamericana, and we're pleased to be here to walk you through our investment analysis that led us to a buy recommendation at a target price of 33.62 and a significant upside of 15% from the last close of November 6 at 29.29. Our target price is found slightly below our bull price of 36.56 and significantly above our bear price of 25.05. Supporting our investment thesis of a 15% upside. Now, I guess you should be asking what led us to a buy recommendation. Well, our investment thesis is supported by an expected long-term sustained growth, an efficient strategic differentiation, an outstanding performance in the financial markets industry, and an attractive valuation. The expected long-term growth can be explained by the reform to the Mexican pension system, consisting in a gradual increase of 850 basis points in the percentage of salaries contributed to retirement accounts, indicating an increase in the projected assets under management by the Afores, through a CAGR of 5.28, thus favoring the equity and derivatives market through a CAGR of 6%. Currently, as of 2023, the assets under management by the Afores represent 18% of Mexican GDP. So, with an increase in Mexican GDP since 2020 and a projected assets under management increase, we expect Grupo BMV to undergo a long-term sustained growth, satisfying its shareholders through a CAGR in its total revenue of 5.5. Now, Grupo BMV has demonstrated an efficient financial performance in the industry through its generated returns, satisfying its shareholders' return expectations at less risk than its peers. Grupo BMV achieves this by generating outstanding returns compared to its peers at a debt-to-equity ratio below the industry average, indicating that Grupo BMV has been efficient in reporting outstanding returns at less risk than its peers. Grupo BMV takes advantage of the expected growth from the pension system reform with three key projects. The first one, direct custody, targets cost effectiveness and regulated prices, generating 500 million pesos in revenue. The second one doubles annual earnings by allowing pension funds to use securities as collateral for Asigna's margin variations, increasing at a CAGR of 6% the derivatives market. The third one digitizes bond electronic market for efficiency, expecting reduced spreads and increased volumes.
Grupo BMV's strategic projects have been effectively increasing over time. As we can see on this graphic, the rate have been upstairs with 1,616 basis points and the capex to revenue ratio with 372 basis points. Our expectation is that this tendency continue in the coming years.
Moving to our reason number 2, the efficient and strategic differentiation of Grupo BMV is based in his vertical integration with two main segments. The first one, subscription revenue with 49%, and the second one, transactional revenue with 51%. Further divided in 9 revenue streams. The biggest ones represent 65% of the total revenue. Information services, whose users have increased, have a 4-year CAGR of 9.65. Moving to Indeval, which custody, assets on custody, have been increasing in a 4-year CAGR of 7.96, and CFA. This led us to a high operating leverage and also an increase in net margin and EBITDA. Moving to our reason number 3,
Our investment thesis is supported by Grupo MB's outstanding market share, that even though the reform to the best execution rule was implemented in August 2022, affecting Grupo MB and benefiting their direct competitor, Grupo MB has maintained an outstanding market control, staying above 80%.
Grupo BBV's outstanding performance can be seen through the ESG reputation, being leaders in three main points. The first one, labor and employment practices, with 37% of women in all management positions. The second one, corporate governance, with 4 female directors. And the last one, energy transition, with 14.11% less tons emitted than the industry average.
To conclude our investment thesis, our attractive valuation was obtained from a blended approach. We used 3 different models. The first one, discounted cash flow, then relative valuation multiples, and finally, real options. This led us to a target price of 34 with an upside of 15% from the current price.
We analyzed 3 different scenarios for our free cash flow to the firm DCF valuation, in which we systematically adjusted key variables in order to determine their impact on Grupo BBV's financial performance and thus its valuation. Such scenarios consider macroeconomic and regulatory frameworks, operational performance, strategic growth prospects, and valuation expectations. The target price under the optimistic scenario resulted in a 25% upside, and under the pessimistic scenario, in a 14.5% downside. We also conducted a scenario analysis for our free cash flow to the equity, in which we systematically adjusted ROE and revenue growth rates depending on the scenario. The target price under the pessimistic scenario reported a 13.14% downside, and under the optimistic scenario, a 23.8% upside.
We have 2 peer groups in a relative valuation to compare key margins. In the emerging markets group, we have a group of companies that show us the Bolsa's performance against similarly sized companies. And in developed markets, we have information that tells us Grupo BB's overall global position. In this valuation, we chose the price to earnings margin, the price to book, and the enterprise value to EBITDA. And the results led us to the conclusion that even though Grupo BBV has healthy margins, they are still a more economic option than some of their competitors, making them an interesting investment opportunity. We identified 3 main risks that we believe Grupo BBV is exposed to. The first one is a failure in the system that they use to operate on a daily basis. As Grupo BBV becomes an increasingly technology-oriented company, there is a higher probability that something could go wrong, and a system failure could result in a direct impact to the revenue and to their reliability. The second risk we found is the increasing popularity in investment alternatives other than stock markets. In recent years, there have been some creative and new ways to invest money, such as cryptocurrencies and NTFs, which, along with other more traditional investment alternatives like real estate and private equity, take away from the pool of possible investors that would otherwise turn to stock markets to fulfill their needs. Finally, the last risk we analyzed is Bolsa's vulnerability to the regulatory framework. Even though they have done a good job at fighting for their equity side of the competition, more regulatory changes could mean that Bolsa lose more share in other areas if competition would arise, or in private or in equity if it was the case. To conclude, we believe that Bolsa is an investment opportunity, that it is a stock that is undervalued, and we recommend a buy.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your presentation. You were talking about one of the most important factors that make you a buy recommendation is the leading position from Bolsa. But sometimes it is not only the leading position, because the share price hasn't reflected. What do you think that Bolsa needs to do in order to really reflect that it is the leader? Because the share price is undervalued, as you have just said, so it's not just about something about leadership.
I think sometimes people doesn't know about the strategic projects and the growth that Bolsa can have. I think sometimes people only just doesn't focus on the long-term growth of Bolsa, because Bolsa has persisted different crises, and the revenue, it's a good one, dividends are a good one. So I think sometimes we don't buy the action for a long-term investment.
And also, I was wondering, what do you think it has to focus more on growth? In order to enhance profits, do you think it's more about revenue, costs, something about new strategies? What do you think?
I think it is about, obviously, new strategies, and also cost effectiveness, and also new strategies, cost effectiveness, and the projects. We have these 3 projects that we mentioned in our presentation that are the ones that will make Bolsa a more presence in the market.
So it is more about revenues than costs. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Actually, we have a graphic about operating expenses, and we have the increasement, how when the Bolsa expands or the company expands, operating expenses will elevate too, but in a constant growth. We expect high revenue, high expansion, and obviously operating expenses will increase, but in a gradual way.
Yeah, a follow-up on the revenue side. There's a slide where you show CapEx as a percentage of revenues, but it shows that 2023 is kind of a peak, and then it goes down. So how can it sustain high growth without investing as much as before? And how does this CapEx to revenue compare to peers?
Okay. We expect, these are projections about our perception from the strategic projects they have. So these are expectations based on the strategic projects they have in different areas, business divisions. And we expect that those projects are going to generate revenue based on the past strategic projects that they have had and a low capex to revenue. So our perception is that Grupo BMV can achieve their long-term growth projects at lower investments and generate higher revenues. And we also have a capex to revenue comparison. I'm so sorry. Okay, as you can see here, we also have a debt-to-equity ratio comparison in which we assume that Grupo BMV is a less riskier company compared to its peers, and also compared to its current ratio, which indicates liquidity, it's way above the average, the industry average. And also, what Maria Monica was saying about reducing costs, it can be seen in the second graph, in which the increase in net margins can be seen how they have been increasing due to the reducing costs derived from the vertical integration.
Great job, guys. You have the CEO of the company here. What would you tell him if you had to be, if you were assigned a project to determine whether AI will benefit the company or not, and what investments they should make in order to benefit from that?
I think these projects of digitizing the platforms, it exists in other groups, no, or in other bolsas. So I think this is a great project for Bolsa to increase market and to communicate with the world. So I think being in connection with technology and with advancements can benefit Bolsa, revenue, and financial.
As we can see, 50% of their expected projects are focused on electronic methods, and they want to implement Swift software, and that is the objective of connect to the other country, and also they want to increase their liquidity through the implementation of an electronic market. So what we can see here is that Grupo BMW has a strong perception and focus on electronic and transformation to AI and technology.
Okay, thank you. And one more. You outlined very well the prospects of growth given the changes in Afores regulation. What could derail that growth? In other words, do you see some risk that next year whoever wins does something that hurts that growth?
We believe that Grupo BMW's perception of the projected increase in the assets under management, as we said, it's a gradual increase. So we're going to see these benefits in Grupo BMW in the long term. So maybe in some years we can have some disruptions, but at the end, the increase is going to be seen as we are showing here with no reform, and with the reform on the long term until 2040, it's a tremendous increase.
And if the pension system reform was eliminated, it affected Bolsa because Bolsa's strategic projects are like taking advantage of that reform. So I think, yes, it will affect because they are projects that depend on the pension system reform.
Okay, going back to the market share, on the one hand, Bolsa is maintaining a strong market share, but what do you think? Is this sustainable given what happens in other countries or in other regions? Given that there's a clear peer, a competitor, Viva, and it's making its efforts. I mean, do you think it makes sense to expect that Bolsa can maintain that high market share? And what are you incorporating in your model in terms of market share?
Well, we think it does make sense that Bolsa maintains this amount of market share because in the end they have more experience, they are a bigger company, and they are more known by the people. However, we also think that Bolsa would benefit from creating strategies to try to have more investment so that their reduction in the market share can be balanced with new income from new investments.
And also I want to add something that I think Bolsa's market share also is derived from its vertical integration. So I think that's why Bolsa has 80%, above 80% of the market share.
Did you mention what you have in your model in terms of market share assumption?
Yeah. Our projections in the revenue reflect our expectations of Grupo BMW keeping outstanding performance in the industry. So our projected terminal growth and also our growth rate for stage 1 represents an outstanding performance in the industry, increasing revenue.
And also I want to add that even the best execution rule was implemented, Bolsa maintained 80%. So we expect that the market share increases or stays, but we don't think that the market share goes down.
De vuelta. Están entrando los últimos. ¿Qué pasó? Ok, bueno, pues noto mucho más estrés que hace un par de horas. Muchas más sonrisas. Enhorabuena. Muchísimas felicidades a todos los equipos. La verdad es que no me dejarán mentir todos los que se quedaron aquí en la sala, amigos, familiares, académicos. El trabajo hecho fue excelente y en ese sentido, los dedos arriba, labor cumplida. Sé que falta la premiación, pero antes les voy a robar unos minutos. Tenemos con nosotros al presidente de la CFA Society de México, Pepe Segarra, les va a dedicar unas palabras y después también los jueces les van a dedicar unas palabras y un poco de retroalimentación. Entonces Pepe, pues agradeciendo tu presencia el día de hoy, pues bienvenido y te dejo el micrófono.
Muy buenas noches a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Estamos muy felices de que nos acompañen en esta competencia tan interesante para los chavos, tan formativa que es, que a muchos que hoy en día somos parte de la sociedad CFA aquí en México participamos, ¿no? Aquí presentando nuestras tesis y que, bueno, en cierta manera yo personalmente diría que me ayudó en mi camino hacia tener una buena carrera dentro de la industria de asset management. Me gustaría agradecer con mucho énfasis a la Bolsa Mexicana de Valores, a Oriol, que anda por allá. Muchas gracias por ser la casa nuevamente del Research Challenge. De verdad que el darle este foro para este evento a los participantes es invaluable, y ahora pues que se logra que la empresa analizada sea la Bolsa Mexicana. Entonces muy contentos por eso, muchas gracias. También me gustaría darle las gracias a los jueces, Marisa, Raúl, Vanessa. Muchísima experiencia dentro del ramo y se transmite con todas las preguntas que hacen y bueno, se la ponen difícil también a los chavos y eso también es muy formativo, ¿no? Este Research Challenge cada año es un esfuerzo que involucra a 30, un poco más voluntarios, entre graders, jueces, coordinación y todo este esfuerzo liderado por Héctor, que pues aquí ha estado llevando el evento, que pues ya lleva 5 años coordinando el evento, y bueno, es una chama muy importante, muy grande. También a Guillermina Pagaza, que es nuestra directora ejecutiva y que es nuestro brazo derecho para ejecutar absolutamente todo. Y bueno, a todos los medios también que se dieron el tiempo de cubrir el evento. Estuvo por acá Radio Asir, el CEO, Forbes, Fund Society y también nuestro media partner para el evento Rankia, que nos ayudó a llegar a toda Iberoamérica con este evento. Muchas gracias que se dan el tiempo para pues también darle difusión a este esfuerzo de este ecosistema financiero mexicano en esta iniciativa que hay a nivel global de CFA Institute por darle una experiencia del mundo real a estudiantes de carrera que puede potencialmente impulsarlos a hacer una fuerza de cambio dentro de los sistemas financieros, igual en un futuro a que sean ellos también CFA Charter Holders que lleven la misión del instituto, que es promover, elevar el nivel de la profesión financiera en donde sea que laboren. Entonces por todo eso les agradezco muchísimo. Yo también en cuanto a lo que estuvimos viendo en todos sus trabajos, muy buenos todos. Yo nada más les recordaría con la experiencia que nos ha tocado tener del buy side y del sell side, que pues nunca vas a tener la razón, ¿no? Y lo único que puedes hacer es tener un análisis lo más completo posible y también considerar que posiblemente vas a estar mal, ¿no? Porque eso es lo que es verdaderamente más probable. Y es la verdad. Entonces, con esto, pues espero que esta experiencia a todos ustedes que están participando les ayude y los inspira a seguirse desarrollando, a seguir estudiando y pues que algún día los tengamos no solamente como colegas, sino como colegas CFA Charter Holders. Muchísimas gracias nuevamente y pues sigamos con la premiación, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Pepe, por tus palabras. Seguro que son valoradas por todos los presentes. Y también van a ser muy valoradas por los presentes las palabras que les puedan dedicar los jueces. Antes de darles la palabra, nuevamente mi más grande reconocimiento y agradecimiento por estar el día de hoy con nosotros. Nuevamente, participantes y todos los asistentes habrán notado la calidad de profesionales que tenemos el día de hoy acompañándonos. Y en ese sentido, además de agradecerles, pido que todos les den un fuerte aplauso.
Gracias, Héctor. Pues gracias a todos, gracias de nuevo, Pepe, por venir, por estar aquí. Creo que es importante que te conozca la gente y que vea que la CFA Society es pues, grande y activa en México. Guille siempre muy activa y dinámica. Héctor, gracias por tu compromiso con este evento. Gracias a todos por participar, gracias Oriol por recibirnos aquí, te extrañamos aquí arriba, pero obviamente estás mejor allá arriba tomando notas de lo que dijeron los chavos, me pareció muy bueno. Gracias a los participantes, gracias a los mentores, a los que ayudaron, a las familias por estar aquí. A ver, no quiero extenderme, pero es que creo que sí, justo le decía a Guille y a Héctor que es muy importante esto para ustedes, ¿no? Que reciban un poquito de feedback de nosotros, independientemente de quién gane o no. Todos lo hicieron súper bien. El estar aquí vale muchísimo, se necesita mucho para estar, no sé, a la mitad o casi al final de la carrera, pues hacer un análisis tan profundo de una empresa compleja como es la bolsa y presentarla también requiere muchas horas, se ve ahí en un par de slides, pero no, o sea, es muchísimo trabajo. Hay cada vez más información y más herramientas para tener más profundidad en el análisis, pero aún así es difícil llegar a una conclusión, argumentarla, presentarla y no ponerse nervioso delante de un público y de los jueces, ¿no? Entonces, felicidades a todos los participantes, lo han hecho muy bien, en serio. Llevo muchos años haciendo esto y lo disfruto mucho. Platicamos ahorita, Ana y yo, que pues, aprendemos mucho de ustedes, porque siempre hay ángulos nuevos, hay fuentes de información nuevas. Yo vi varias ahí en los reportes, ¿no? Coifin, Statista, etcétera, que hace tiempo no veíamos, más allá de los típicos de Bloomberg y Reuters, etcétera, o de Standard & Poor's, etcétera. Me gusta esa diversidad, me gustan los nuevos frameworks, los nuevos tipos de análisis que hacen. Entonces, es fenomenal esto, ¿no? Recuerden que el CFA es una designación que es en muchos casos equivalente a una maestría. Yo hice las dos, yo tengo un MBA, tengo un CFA y tengo un CFA hace mucho tiempo, pero decidí hacer los dos porque se complementan mucho, pero en muchos casos con el CFA basta para que te vaya muy bien en una carrera de finanzas, ¿no? Entonces valórenlo, si se deciden inscribir en algún momento les vale mucho la pena. El network al que entras es padrísimo y analizar empresas pues, que venden miles de millones de dólares y ver si va a subir o va a bajar y ponerse en un contexto de portafolios y de inversiones es bien interesante. Hay muchas formas de capitalizar esto en un futuro en trabajos, así que los invito a que consideren el CFA, a que se sigan involucrando en ese tipo de análisis y que sigan con sus carreras porque lo están haciendo muy bien. Y lo que le voy a pedir a Guille y a Héctor es que después nos pasen un poquito más de detalles de los participantes para saber quiénes son, qué estudian, dónde están, etcétera, porque un ejemplo, hoy en NSC justo tuvimos un programa de trainees donde 7 participaron, los cuates y chavos ya terminando la carrera, y a los 7 los vamos a contratar, ¿no? Cosa que nunca había pasado. Entonces hay mucho talento, hay muy buena inercia de México con lo que ya todos sabemos del nearshoring, las inversiones y el peso fuerte, etcétera. O sea, está pasando por algo, porque México de nuevo está en los radares de los inversionistas y de los inversionistas, o sea, inversionistas de portafolio e inversionistas de plantas, ¿no? Entonces hay que aprovechar eso y el talento que tenemos en México, de verdad, cada día me sorprende más, así que los felicito y gracias.
Yo creo que Raúl ya dijo muchas de las cosas que queremos decirles, pero sobre todo yo quiero felicitarlos. Yo tengo mucho tiempo haciendo equity research, es algo que me gusta, que me apasiona, pero sin lugar a dudas todo lo que vi hoy muestra todo el trabajo que hay más allá, que a pesar de que a lo mejor no tienen la experiencia que se requiere, pues hacen un análisis muy detallado que realmente los está involucrando. Ojalá, yo creo que no tengan miedo de ser diferentes, o sea, vimos distintas recomendaciones, eso es muy importante, que no les dé miedo decir, pues yo digo que es C, sin importar que esté aquí Oriol, eso es algo muy importante. Pero sí, lo más importante es que logren sustentar sus ideas, ¿no? Cuando están bien sustentadas, puedes estar bien o puedes estar mal. Pero yo creo que lo más importante es que no te dé miedo, no dejen de aprender, no dejen de aprovechar esto que hicieron tanto con sus mentores, o sea, ya lo dijo Raúl, o sea, yo creo que una parte muy importante del talento, o sea, surge, o sea, yo creo que apenas es el conocimiento inicial hacia un mundo financiero que abarca muchas aristas. Yo tengo en particular chicos en mi equipo que pasaron por ese momento de participar en el CFA Research Challenge, ahora lo ven desde el otro punto de vista, pero que realmente, o sea, es algo que te puede dar muchos beneficios, ¿no? en el plazo. Entonces quiero felicitarlos, a sus papás por apoyarlos, a los mentores por dirigirlos, no lo dejen ahí. Yo creo que sí es muy importante que se sigan preparando, el que sean innovadores es algo muy importante, porque yo siempre lo que digo, la experiencia te ayuda mucho, pero la innovación es lo que te va a permitir que entonces tú puedas aplicar recomendaciones que sean mucho más certeras, ¿no? Entonces me gusta mucho que se muestren esa innovación. Si lo juntan con la experiencia, yo creo que van a ser pues grandes recomendaciones. No solo tienen que dedicarse a lo que es, vimos muy claro lo que es el equity research, ¿no? Y en particular por eso lo disfruté mucho. Las cuestiones siempre con los inversionistas o las preguntas pues suelen ser bastante rudas en el día a día, ¿no? Y finalmente, como decían, o sea, a lo mejor nos equivocamos o a lo mejor estamos correctos, pero lo importante es con lo que te quedas, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que quédense con esta experiencia, ojalá la hayan disfrutado. Nosotros compartimos un ratito con ustedes, la verdad lo disfrutamos muchísimo, yo vi mucho talento, entonces sí le diría a Héctor que se acerquen con nosotros, o si están interesados en seguirse desarrollando, o sea, creo que es una muy buena oportunidad, pero sobre todo no lo dejen, o sea, no nada más pasen como dice el CFA Research Challenge, ¿no? Síganse preparando. Hoy en día yo creo que es mucho más, o sea, relativamente más fácil el poder acercarse a que seas un CFA Chart Holder, requiere mucho estudio, pero ustedes ya demostraron con los trabajos de lo que son capaces. Entonces, muchas felicidades y siéntense, la verdad, todos muy orgullosos de los trabajos. Fue una contienda bastante apretada, ahorita lo van a ver.
Sí, bueno, de mi lado definitivamente felicitarlos, un gran esfuerzo realizado por todos. La calidad me impresionó, es la primera vez que participo como jueza, a pesar de que soy CFA Chart Holder desde entonces, aquí mejor tarde que nunca. Es un gran orgullo y privilegio para mí esta invitación y haberlos escuchado, haberlos evaluado, hacerles las preguntas. Los felicito por el trabajo en equipo. Se vio mucha congruencia dentro de los miembros de cada equipo, respetando los tiempos de cada uno, dándose la palabra. Eso es súper importante y cada vez más en los tiempos que vivimos, donde pues hay muchas partes del trabajo que AI va a estar haciendo, ¿no? Dentro de finanzas eventualmente va a evolucionar, pero la parte del equipo, la colaboración, la comunicación, eso va a aumentar en importancia y ustedes, bueno, ya están logrando una parte ahí. Y reiterar lo que mis colegas les comentan acerca de la importancia de seguirse preparando. Yo obviamente recomiendo hacer los exámenes del CFA, pasarlos, tener la designación, los ponen en un estándar global altísimo, donde con cualquier persona financiera que hablen en el mundo va a saber el estándar técnico que traen simplemente por traer la designación. Y eso es algo muy especial acerca de CFA, porque si ustedes estudian MBA en una escuela u otra, incluso de un país u otra, pues ya es diferente, ¿no? Ya tiene diferentes reconocimientos. El CFA es el mismo en todo el mundo, así que considérenlo también, y algunas recomendaciones conforme se preparan para su carrera profesional es que aunque hayan hecho cierta parte de este trabajo de Research Challenge, tienen que saberse todo lo que los otros hicieron, porque en una entrevista, bueno, yo les digo de mi experiencia, para mí fue muy importante y también fue muy claro cuando alguien no estaba involucrado en evaluación, y la evaluación es la parte más técnica de esto y es de lo que más se valora cuando estás en entry level en cualquier trabajo financiero, así que les recomiendo empaparse y siempre refrescar este gran trabajo que hicieron antes de una entrevista en la industria. Y pues bueno, les recomiendo cuando encuentren alguna oportunidad en research, tómenla como trainee. Yo me formé ahí 20 años y es una carrera que te abre las puertas a muchas otras posteriormente, independientemente de si lo hacen 2 años, 10 años o 20 años, como es mi caso. Es la base para una carrera en investment banking, en consultoría, en asset management, en una empresa, en el área financiera, en asesoría financiera estilo wealth management. O sea, de verdad, esto es una probadita de lo que es research y el CFA, y los felicito por haberse dado esa oportunidad y tomar el reto.
Muchísimas gracias Raúl, Marisa, Vanessa, por sus palabras, la verdad valiosísimas para todos los presentes. Les dejamos unos obsequios y unos reconocimientos ahí, las bolsitas que tenían al principio, y sobre todo el aprecio más importante de todos, ¿no? Otro aplauso, por favor. La verdad es que las palabras de Pepe, de los jueces, súper importantes para todos ustedes. Déjenme nada más pasarles unos comentarios, pensamientos finales. La verdad es que me declaro fan de todos los participantes el día de hoy. Ahora sí que pensando back in my days, lo que vienen a presentar aquí, la verdad es que es impresionante. O sea, no puedo dejar de admirar que en 3 meses que les damos para analizar una empresa sean capaces de escribir lo que escriben y después venir a presentar de la manera que presentan. No nada más la calidad técnica, incluso la calidad visual. La verdad es que las presentaciones que hicieron de primer nivel. Oriol se lució también con nueva pantalla para este evento. Muchas gracias, Oriol. Entonces, bueno, me declaro su fan. Es algo que no sé si yo hubiera podido hacer cuando salí de la carrera. Entonces, ver gente que lo está haciendo ahorita en México, la verdad es que mi admiración total. Los trabajos son de altísima calidad, todos ya son ganadores. Frase un poco trillada, pero en verdad es real, ¿no? Ahorita lo mencionan un poco los jueces. El trabajo que hicieron ustedes es prácticamente profesional, alguien podría pagar por eso, ¿no? En ese sentido es algo que ustedes ya pueden ir a poner a sus CVs, que participaron, que fueron finalistas y pueden describir todo lo que les implicó hacer este tipo de trabajo, ¿no? Entonces verdaderamente siéntanse todos ganadores. Las historias que hemos recibido de ex ganadores, pero ex finalistas en general son maravillosas, incluso participantes en general. Desearles la mejor de sus suertes en sus carreras profesionales. La mayoría de ustedes están por salir. Ojalá que tomen este rumbo de agarrar la industria financiera. Es un campo relativamente noble y hasta cierto punto meritocrático. Las personas que más conocimientos adquieren, que más habilidades desarrollan y que más esfuerzos dedican a las carreras suelen tener buen éxito a lo largo de ellas, ¿no? Entonces, el mayor de los éxitos para todos ustedes. Ya hicieron un poco de comercial, están todos invitadísimos a perseguir la designación CFA. La verdad es que les va a complementar su carrera de maneras maravillosas y les va a permitir pues, dar esos signalings de que conocen, de que pueden perseguir metas. Eso creo que es algo muy valioso de buscar la designación. Es decir, yo me puse esta meta de corto, mediano plazo y la conseguí. Y el networking que ya mencionó Raúl, ¿no? Y bueno, me quedo, suelo decir, me quedo muy satisfecho. Sé que el futuro de la industria financiera en México está en muy buenas manos. Si jóvenes como ustedes son los que dirigen a nuestra industria en los siguientes años o décadas, pues México se va a seguir desarrollando en sus mercados e instrumentos financieros. Muchas gracias a todos. Vamos a mencionar ganadores. Ahora sí que también respecto a la sana competencia vamos a mencionar desde el quinto hasta el primer lugar. también para que todos puedan pasar a recibir sus trofeos de finalistas, para que puedan pasar por una foto y pues sí, para que todos tengan la oportunidad de celebrar, ¿no? Entonces, vámonos, quinto lugar, mi reconocimiento, muchísimas felicidades, Universidad de Monterrey, la UDEM. Vámonos por el cuarto lugar. Nuevamente también muchísimas felicidades y trabajo muy bien hecho. Universidad Anáhuac Campus Sur. Seguimos con el tercer lugar. Excelente trabajo, muy bien hecho también, muy interesante presentación. Tecnológico de Monterrey, Campus Aguascalientes. Bueno, pues tenemos dos últimas escuelas. No, ahora va a ser mucha emoción. Nada más en el mismo espíritu de buena competencia, voy a mencionar primero al segundo lugar para que puedan recibir sus aplausos, puedan venir por sus trofeos, tomar la fotografía y posteriormente mencionaré con lo que ya todos hablan, pero en primer lugar para que también reciban sus aplausos y sus reconocimientos, ¿les parece? Entonces, igualmente, excelente trabajo, muchísimas felicidades, muy buena calidad de la presentación, el trabajo todo. Universidad Panamericana, Campus CiudadUP. Y posteriormente están invitados al brindis. En primer lugar, Universidad Iberoamericana. Los trofeos están acá del lado de los jueces.
Sí, igualmente. Muchas felicidades. Muchísimas gracias. Muy padre. Felicidades. Muchas gracias. Gran trabajo. Muchas felicidades. Gran trabajo. Muchas felicidades. Ya sé que pues todos somos apasionados, pero muchas felicidades. ¿Qué tan serios? Somos los ganadores.
Gracias, Héctor, y muy breve, un minuto, porque yo creo que todos queremos ir al brindis y felicitar a todos los participantes que la verdad hicieron una gran labor. Yo en realidad quería agradecerles a todos los participantes, porque sí aprendimos mucho. Apunté varias cosas, tomé varias fotografías de láminas, todo. Finalmente ustedes, los jóvenes que presentaron, son el mercado que nosotros queremos. Nosotros no queremos convencer a una persona ya muy adulta que quizá invirtió en 87 y tuvo una mala experiencia, que las hay, y que ya no quiere saber nada de invertir en equities, y entonces, pero en cambio los jóvenes sí están aprendiendo, han hecho una gran labor todos ustedes. Entonces sí hubo varias cosas que apunté y que le vamos a dar seguimiento y que comentábamos las personas que estábamos aquí en la bolsa. Entonces la verdad agradecerle, felicitar a todos los participantes, obviamente felicitar a la Ibero por ese primer lugar y muchísima suerte representándonos, que les vaya muy muy bien. Y quisiera hacer una mención especial a la UP, que aparte me traicionaron porque es mi alma mater, en serio. Pero bueno, creo que el poner una recomendación de venta, y lo mencionaban los jueces que conocen muy bien este negocio, no sé el porcentaje, pero creo que al menos cuando menos el 90% de las recomendaciones de analistas de equity son de compra o compra y hold. El de venta debe ser menor al 10, 5%. Entonces, siempre el ser el outlier, el salir de la zona de confort, el ir en contra de ella. Aparte también, como lo mencionabas, tiene su valor venir a la bolsa con la emisora de la bolsa y poner la recomendación de venta, y la verdad muy bien fundamentada. Entonces también fue una gran labor, pero el que se hayan atrevido también muy bien, y a los otros participantes también un excelente trabajo todos. Están en su casa el día que quieran, las puertas de la bolsa están abiertas todos los días. Bueno, el sábado cerramos, el domingo pero el domingo abrimos. Este es el domingo que está mucha gente por aquí paseando, está abierto el museo, tenemos personas que les pueden dar recorrido, que les pueden dar una plática muy interesante, se pueden tomar selfies, les dejamos todo el piso iluminado, todas las pantallas. Tenemos muchos visitantes, hemos tenido, este año vamos a andar, 60,000 por ahí, 60,000 visitantes. De los 100 museos que hay en la Ciudad de México, estamos en el top 5 más o menos en número de visitantes. Es un museo gratuito, pero es parte de la labor que hace la bolsa, porque sí estamos convencidos de que hay una falta de educación financiera, y que la educación financiera y la inversión es muy necesaria simplemente para esto, para que los inversionistas pongan a trabajar el dinero, como le llamamos, que eso genera empleo, que eso genera crecimiento económico, que eso genera desarrollo, que eso genera bienestar social. Entonces, eso es bien, bien importante. Entonces, el museo lo pueden recorrer, les digo, prácticamente todos los días. Y un último comentario que también llama la atención: si ven el museo y si ven las fotos de antes, no van a ver mucha equidad de género en las fotos que había. Lo cual ahora me dio, y yo creo que lo hemos comentado también en ocasiones anteriores, mucho gusto en ocasiones anteriores que había los dos temas, y que la labor que hacen las mujeres hoy en día en el sistema financiero es impresionante. Bueno, aquí también incluso son mayoría en nuestro jurado. Entonces, la verdad, muchísimas felicidades a todas y muchísimas felicidades a todos también. Y gracias.
Bueno, pues ahora sí que momento de celebrar, terminar de sacar el estrés. Los invitamos al brindis muy brevemente nada más. Los participantes seguro ya lo saben hacer, si no, traten de conocerse entre ustedes. La verdad es que es una comunidad académica de primer lugar, de primer orden, nos representan en el país. Tenemos chicos de fuera de la ciudad, gente de la ciudad, conózcanse todos, compartan sus tesis de inversión. Yo estoy impresionado, tuvimos desde el Strong Buy hasta el Sell, entonces a ver a qué convergen. Y bueno, muchas gracias a todos por su asistencia, vámonos por un minuto.